Lion of Judah Society. Lion of Judah Society. Ring the alarm, ring the alarm. Lion of Judah Society. Ring the alarm, ring the alarm, ring the alarm. Here, give ear. Here, the fourth book of Moshe, the Hebrew book called Numbers chapter 10. The order of the Tzava, the Tzabaot, the order of the hosts of the armies. The 19th item, the silver assembly trumpets. Silver assembly trumpets. Why daberi Yahweh il Moshe leimor, and Yahweh, he who be HaKadosh, Baruch Hashem, spoke to Moshe, Leimor, saying, make thee 2 trumpets of silver, Sittilekus, Shnei Hatzotzrot Kesef, Hatzotzrot, trumpets of Kesef, trumpets of silver, of beaten work shalt thou make them, and they shall be to thee for the calling of the aggregation of the congregation, and for causing the camps to set forward, ringing the alarm. Yes, I. Why daberi Yahweh el Moshe leimor, Sittilekus, Shnei Hatzotzrot Kesef, Mikasha ta'iseh otam, v'hayuleka le'mikra ha'edah, ulamasa et ha'machanot. Moving forward, setting forward the journeys. Ula Masa, the journeys eta ha-machanot, the machanot, the camps moving forward. Make the eye 2 trumpets of silver. ስትלኵס shnei chatzot kesef. Of a whole piece shalt thou make them, that thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journey and the trod and the yard and of the camps. And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to the eye at the door, the patach of the ohel moed, of the tent of meeting, the tent of appointment, the tabernacle of the congregation. Make the eye 2 trumpets of silver. This is in view of the forthcoming campaign for the occupying of the idol land, the Holy Land, east of the River Nile. It was essential to have means of communication on important occasions for the calling together to gather of the chiefs and the summoning of the whole people, all among them to the back of, with them, with both trumpets. This was the summons to the whole congregation, the whole aggregation. Ringing the alarm. Yes, I ring the alarm. So here, 4th book of Moshe, Hebrew book that's called Numbers, here in the Sefer Bamidbar in the wilderness. Organization, centralization, organize and centralize. And if they blow but with 1 trumpet, then the princes, which are the heads, the Roshei, the heads, the Rases of thousands of Yisrael, shall gather themselves to the eye. And if they blow but with one of the trumpets. So here, in the 4th book of Moshe, Numbers chapter 10, we have the signals, the alarm, the ring of the alarm. And when they shall blow with them, all the congregation shall gather themselves to the eye at the door of the tent of meeting. Wittak'u ba'hein no'edu eleika kol ha'edah illa patach ohel moed. And when they shall blow with them, when they shall alarm sound with them, wittak'u ba'hein no'edu eleika. When they shall blow with them, with both of them, all the aggregation, all the congregation shall gather themselves to the eye at the door of the tent of meeting. And if they blow but with 1, and if only one sound, we'im be'achat yitak'a'u, only with be'achat, we'im, and if it be ve'im be'achat, we'im be'achata yitak'a'u, we'no'edu eleika. And if they blow but with 1, then the princes, Ha-Nesi'im, the Nesi'im, Ha-Nesi'im, Rashi, the Roshi, Rashi, Alfi Yisrael. But if they blow but with one, then the princes, who are the Rashi, Alfi Yisrael, who are the heads, the Rases of the thousands of Yisrael, shall gathering themselves together to the eye. And when they blow an alarm, here, Numbers, 4th book of Moses, Hebrew book called Numbers, the Sefer Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 10, verse 5, and when ye y'all blow an alarm, then the camps that lay on the east side, shall go forward. When ye y'all blow an alarm, sound an alarm, the second time, then the camps, Menachot, that lay on the south side, shall take their journey, take to their trod. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys, for their trotting forward. But when the aggregation is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but y'all shall not sound an alarm. So there's a time, there's a season to ring the alarm, and there's a season for not ringing the alarm. So here, when ye blow an alarm. So ringing the alarm is for what purpose, Chabarim? What's the purpose, Chabarim? When ye blow an alarm. What is that alarm? When ye blow an alarm. Utak aetem, the tik'ah, the alarm. Utak aetem. Teruah, Nasu'u, ha-mechanot, ha-chonim, Adama, the Adama, the east side, and when ye blow an alarm. So the word we have here, in the Hebrew, the word that we have here in the Hebrew for alarm, the alarm, we say ring, right? Ring the alarm. What's the purpose of the alarm? What are the alarms they're speaking of right here? In the order of the hosts, the order of the tzava, the tzaba, the tzabaot, the order of the hosts right here. So here in Numbers chapter 10, verse 5. Where do we have this word first? The alarm, ringing the alarm. Let's zoom in on this idea, ringing the alarm. When y'all blow an alarm. When y'all blow an alarm. Utak aetem teruah. Utak aetem teruah. Utak aetem teruah. And when y'all blow an alarm, the teruah, the alarm, then what happens? Then the camps that lay on the east side, shall go forward. They shall go forward, move forward. When ye blow an alarm the second time, here in verse 6, Utak aetem teruah shenit, the second time, Utak aetem, and when y'all blow, Utak aetem teruah, the teruah, very important word, the teruah. We have the yom teruah, right? The day of the alarm, the day of the trumpets, the teruah. So the teruah, that trumpet is that alarm. It says, and when ye blow an alarm the second time, utakaitem teruah shenit. The second time, then the camps that lay on the south side shall take their journey. They shall blow an alarm. They shall blow an alarm for the journey. So the blowing of the alarm is for the journeys. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys, for the moving forward. The alarm is for the blowing of the journeys. Teruah yitak'u lemasa masa, the journey, the tribe, the journeys. Oh. So this is for the movement of the camp, a signal to two remaining divisions. So first we had the camps that lay on the east, the Qadma. On the east side, look to the Qadma, which is the east. The three camps under the banner of Yehuda, the banner of Judah, even the Lion of Judah. In verse 5, Numbers chapter 10, verse 5. In verse 6, they shall blow an alarm for their journeys. They shall blow an alarm. The principle here is the blowing of the alarm for their journeys. For the journeys, for the moving forwards, it says that they shall blow an alarm. Blowing an alarm for their journeys. That's the principle there. Blowing an alarm, a signal to two remaining divisions. The same alarm was sounded, ringing the alarm. Same alarm sounded, the same teruah sounded for the setting forth of the third division in the west, on the west side, and for the fourth division in the north side. Now we come to verse 7. Here in verse 7, but when the assembly is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but ye shall not sound an alarm. Here in verse 7. But when the congregation is to be gathered together, it says, ye shall blow, but y'all shall not sound an alarm. Ubehaklil, the hakal, the kahala, being assembled together, calling the corporate body together. Ube hakahil, et hakahal, titak'u, ye shall blow with low, but no tari'u, Titak'u shall blow with low, but no with low, tari'u, but not sound an alarm. There were three distinct signals. Knowing the signals, the signs, the signals, the sig of L, the signs of L, the signals. There were three distinct signals for the three contingencies. The three contingencies. One, both trumpets were used for summoning the whole congregation, the aggregation, calling the whole, we could say, church together. Churchically speaking, the corporate body together. Secondarily, the second contingency is one for calling the princes. Both these signals consisted of the taqiyya, which is a sustained blast. Thirdly, the third contingency was that both trumpets Both of the trumpets, shitay, they say shinay, shitay, chatzotzerot, chatzotzerot, the shitay, since they're feminine, you're the shitay, the two. Alright, both the trumpets were sounded to warn the camps to set forward. The signal was a teruah. The teruah, a thrilling or an alarming blast with a taqiyah, the taqiyah, preceding and following it. Once again, Why Dabariya El Moshe Lemor sittilekus hatzotzerot kesef. sittilekus hatzotzerot kesef. Make the eye 2 trumpets of silver. They shall ring, they shall ring, they shall ring, they shall ring the alarm.
Lion of Judah Society.
Ereb Tov, right there. Some on the Hatzotzerot, or the Hatzotzerah, singular. Hatzotzerah, Hatzotzerah, the Hatzotzerah, and the Hatzotzerot, the trumpets. So here, a little bit on the 2 silver trumpets right here. And the 3 distinct kind of signals, the signals right there. Now, of course, want to get a here, right here. So we have, let's a little bit to share right here, though we're still doing our investigation, just to understand these trumpet signals and also what it means. We say ring the alarm. Yeah, what does it mean to ring the alarm, Torah-wise? Right, so blowing the silver trumpet, this is one sound, so we can hear the sound. Right here to the sound. Silver. And here's the scripts in the Brit Chadasha, the Adis Kidan, the New Covenant, Renewed Covenant scriptures. We have 1 Corinthians 14:8. And our brother Paulos, Rav Shaul, he says, for if the trumpet give an uncertain sound. All right, so first things first, and we read about this, is okay, we know there's the ram's horn, we've heard the ram's horn, right? And then there's the silver trumpets, and the silver trumpets are used distinctively, right? From the ram's horn, right? And then we have these key words, teruah. What is a teruah? Because the day of trumpets, which is called in the later times Rosh Hashanah. So we have what is called Rosh Hashanah. What is Rosh Hashanah? And when does Rosh Hashanah occur? All right. So this whole connection here on the podcast here, just bringing up these themes in this Torah reading and feeding. Here in the 36 sabbatical study, here we have Beha'alotekha. When you step up, when thou lightest, when thou steppest up to light or to cause the light of the lamps to ascend. Here in this Torah reading and feeding, we also have the theme of the trumpets, right? The trumpets. Now, the trumpets, sometimes in the translations, right, like the King James Version mainly and other translations, sometimes they will not just in interpret, but also interpolate. So sometimes a word is used to kind of, I guess, give the English readers a sense, but it's not really precise. So sometimes we'll see the word trumpet. If we just went and looked up right now, trumpet, we'll probably both find it for the shofar, the ram's horn, right? Which is often called the shofar, which means a ram's horn. And then we also have other types of trumpets. For example, right here in this Torah reading and feeding, we have the Shetei Hatzotzarot. In other words, the Hatzotzarot, the silver trumpet. So it's picking up with Numbers chapter 10, right? And then there is the signals that are given, the specific signals, right? There seems to be 3 distinct signals. And then when it says you shall blow, right? And then it says alarm, right? As we begin to read, we begin to recognize that, blowing, right, the trumpet, like for example, here on the board, there's this kind of thing we got here, which might be a little bit like a silver trumpet, right? The air horn, right? So that's like a blast, a taka. So in the Hebrew, they call it the taka, right? It's like a blast or like a clap. So the taka can be that, this, and it can be like when we smack your hands together, right? In fact, let's just go back there for a moment, right? Let's just put here just for simple words so we can, in this study, kind of just touch on the basics here and get a basic sense of it and hopefully reason on it, right? Let's go trumpet. Could be the first trump, might as well be the last. So here, notice in Leviticus 23:24, right? It says, speak to the children of Israel, the Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Israel, directly the sons of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, the 7th moon, in the first of the month, the first of the new month, right? Shall y'all have a Shabbat in the first? Shall it be a Shabbat, right? A memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. Now here, right, we have the teruah. You see the teruah here is defined in the BDB, right, as alarm, signal, sound of a tempest, shout, right, both the literal sense and also the figurative sense, the shout or the blast of war or of alarm or of joy. So it can be used for war, alarm, joy, an alarm of war, a war cry, a battle cry, the blast for like a march. Also the shout, the teruah can be a shout. Yeah, can be a shout with really just righteous impulse, a shout of joy in general. Let's scroll down here. The clamor, a claim of joy or a battle cry. Clangor, like a clangor when you hear a bunch of trumpets sounding at the same time. Or as that's the old way. Is that the old way or typo? I think it might be an old way. Alarum, alarm, the alarm, right? So now after the colon and the hyphen is how this word appears in various areas of the King James Version translation. Teruah as alarm, as blow or blowing, right? The blowing of the trumpet. So what's in parentheses is sometimes the context, or like blow, to blow, or a blowing, right? Joy, jubilee, right? A loud noise, right? Rejoicing, shout, a shout, yeah, right? Or shouting, high, joyful sound, right? Even in a sense that can correspond to the elilta, like when it's really, really loud and clear, yeah? So right here, it says that this will be a what? A memorial, right? So the zikron. So we've just touched on, once again, Chag, Shavuot, Sameach. How's it going? How's it growing? The harvest of the land and the harvest of the man. Here, in the season from the Brit Hayashana, the Old Covenant, the Sinai Covenant, to Zion, the Brit Chadasha. So we've come to the 4th of the 7 appointed feasts and festivals that occur in 7 months and 7 moons, right? When we get to the 7th month, at the fullness of tabernacles, the scripture tells us that this is the end of the year, right? So remember, we touched on Rosh Hashanah, that Rosh Hashanah, it corresponds in the later trod and tradition with this particular feast and festival here in Leviticus 23:24. So what we're doing right here is we're at the 4th, of the 7 appointed feasts and festivals. You can see an overview of that in Leviticus 23, right? Study up on that, get the basics, the 7. What are the 7? It's good to know the 7, and you don't see how it works together. And then, right, counting the 7 Shabbats, complete 7 times 7, 49 plus 1 day, the 50th day. In Hebrew, the Hamishim Yom, in the synagogue Greek or the Koine Greek, it's called the Pentecost, Pentecoste, the 50th day. 50th day after the bringing forth of the first fruits during the season that often is referred to as Passover or unleavened bread, right? So that's the 4th, right? So we reach the 4th. We reach the midway, right? Even here in this Shabua here, this is what, the Wednesday, so that's like the middle of the week, the 4th day of the Shabua. Well, here we reach the 4th feast, right? And the 4th feast, and also we're in the 4th book right here of the Torah in Numbers at the same time. And there's corresponding themes that kind of reflect on certain principles. So here we have a Zikron. This is called a Zikron. A Zikron. What's a Zikron? Zikron or Zikron, fully enunciated Zikron. Zikron, right? Zikron, right? A memorial, because it comes from Zakar, to remember, to call to mind. Also, Zakar as a noun means male, right? Male, M-A-L-E, right? Memorial, reminder, remembrance. Memento, a memorable thing, a memorable day, a memorable writing, something that's a memory or a record to record. So here, this is now what we're looking forward to, right? When we come into the 7th month, the 7th moon. So we have kind of a short season right here after harvest. The first harvest has come through, and then we have the harvest coming forward in the 7th month at what is called, according to Torah, the end of the year. Right? So this is why this is known as Rosh Hashanah within the Yehudi, the tribe of Judah tradition, right? Post-Babylonian exile, after that return, Ezra, Nehemiah, and they sought to restore the way of living, according to covenant, because, the question was asked, why did we go into captivity, into the Babylonian captivity? And since they were able to be restored, namely the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and a few other remnants of the other tribes were able to be restored, but the Judah, Yehuda, came once again to the land. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise, because Judah was like the last of the Jedi, Judah, right? Because they were the last of the Israelites to still be representing the covenant in the land. So they asked the question, why was it? So from prophets like Prophet Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah had said what? He said, it was revealed to the prophet Jeremiah that because they refused to allow the land, or they did not let the land observe her Shabbats, right? They overworked. Another way of looking at it, they overworked the land. Yes, Yahweh cares for the land. In fact, coming up in this Torah reading and feeding, we're going to find out that there were spies that were sent. And when Yahweh was ready to destroy them, right, he emphasized because they slandered the land. Check that out. When we get to that, concerning the spies, the 12 spies, 10 of them that told lies, and the people listened to the majority. They exercise a poor version of democracy. They listened to the majority opinion, and the majority opinion was wrong, right? And that basically cost them, entry into, the land of promise. So those who he brought out, who Yahweh brought out, he did not bring in, right? He didn't bring in. Right? And that's the theme that also we find in Psalms like Psalm 95, for example, Psalm 95, the first of the Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms, right? But be that as it may, right? We have this right here, right? So the first of the month, the first of the moon, shall y'all have a Shabbat, right? A Zikaron, a Shabbat of blowing of trumpets, right? Now, some might think, well, this is the weekly Sabbath. It might occur at that time. Right. But no, this means that day, right, whenever that day occurs, it is a Shabbat day. It's like a haul and pull up, because here we're in the holy season. Right. So note that it begins from the first month, right? The holy year. We often call this the Hebrew ecclesiastical year. Another way of saying the Hebrew churchical year. Why we say church is because the assembly. The assembly is the kahal. is the gathering together. We, the members of the body. It's not the building. The place, even in the wilderness, was the Ohel Moed. It was a tent of meeting where the Adah is the congregation where we would meet. And Adah, for congregation in that sense, has at its root the Ed, right? The Ed or Aid is a witness, right? So like the witnesses. Can I get a witness? Those who witness, those who, you know what I mean? Those who show up because of their faith. So the faith, right? Without work, part of that work would be to show up, right? You know, for the holy seasons and bring the appropriate offerings, right? You know, so right here it says shall have a Shabbat, right? So we have the weekly Sabbaths, right? According to Leviticus 23, when we study it, there's a weekly Sabbath, right? That means that every the seventh day, right? The Shabbat day, 6 days work, and then cease from working on the seventh day. So the work and rest principle right there. And then we have the Shabbats, right, that occur, right? And the Sabbath like days that occur. They're not specifically called Sabbath, but because there is a holy convocation, right? We who are of covenant, right? That's how we stay in good standing. That's the sense. That's the idea there. That's why it says of holy convocation, a mikra kodesh. So the mikra is the outcalled assembly. Mikra, right? The convocation, mikra. Now this word basically comes from the Hebrew word kara. Now this is a very familiar word as we start to study the text. We get to find that it's a very familiar word. Hold on for a moment. Yeah, here we go. It's a very familiar word. In fact, it comes from this root right here, kara. So what is kara? Kara is to call out, to recite, also to read. To kara is to read, to cry out, like to call out or to proclaim. You know, like somebody calling out a message. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, you know, in that kind of sense there. Also, it means to call upon, right, the Hashem, to call upon the name. Right? So when we call upon Yahweh, you know, or some might say Yahuwah, but Yahweh by name, right? We can call upon him by his attributes, Elohim, you know, Eloheinu, our Elohim, Malkeinu, our King, Goleinu, our Redeemer, by his attributes, but then also to call upon him by the Hashem, by the covenant name. So this is an interesting word because it also means to read aloud. You see the kara, right? The kara, to read aloud. Because one might ask, well, why when we come together, why do we read? You know, one might ask that. Well, part of the answer to that is in the biblical Hebrew meaning of kara, right? In the sense of convocation. That's why sometimes we translate the holy conversation. Convocation is the conversation, but convocation, you know, as a set apart, out called gathering. So it's both the calling of us together, right? And in the coming together, right? It's the calling upon Yahweh, you know, by name and calling upon him, and also the reason for the season, right? Going over his revealed revelation, that is say Torah and scripture, for what is appropriate, you know, so we can know what the gathering is for, right? To read aloud, to read. Notice even to read to oneself, right? So the reading and feeding, you know, right? Notice when Yeshua even asked them, Robbeinu, Yeshua HaNotri, Jesus of Nazareth, he said, especially to the Pharisees and those who should know better, you know, the learned ones, he says, have y'all not read? Have y'all not read? Because in a sense that reading could also be considered to be part of what is willed, what Yahweh, what's according to Yahweh Eloheinu's will, right? That we read. Both also the Shema Yisrael, that we hear and obey, right? Hear, understand, to obey, right? And also we kara, right? Read. So this word kara depends on the context, can apply to all of these, right? So it's interesting here when we have this as a mikra kodesh. Kodesh is set apart. It's set apart from the other days, right, of our lives. You know, in the other days, like the Shabbat day being set apart from the other days of business and activity, right? So that principle of work and rest, right? Work and rest, right? So that means work in the sense is a command, right? Yes, 6 days you shall work. Is that a suggestion? Or is that 6 days you shall work and the seventh day you shall cease from work, or Shabbat, right? Rest from work. So both, if we say Shabbat is a command, then also we have to recognize that before we get to the Shabbat day, the seventh day, there must be days of activity. Check. Just that balance there. Numbers 10 and 4, right? And if they blow, right, with but one. Now you notice that the word but is italicized, trumpet is italicized, which are italicized. So reading out those italicization, if they blow with one, right, then the princes, right, heads, Roche, right, the heads, the Rases, the heads of thousands of Yisrael shall gather themselves to thee. Now, note that right there. So we begin to see some order. Just in looking, zooming in on the trumpets, the Chatzotzara or Chatzotzarot in plural sense, right? Chatzotzarot. Looking at the trumpets, we see that there's an order. So far up to Numbers chapter 10 right here, we see where Yahweh is laying out an order, right? An order for the camp. I mean, we didn't even touch on the cloud. I mean, there's even a technology, the cloud. We talk about cloud technology today. Well, Yahweh was already before them, right? How even the cloud, right, was used to communicate. You know what I mean? To communicate. And how here, as we read here, that's the Anan, right there. Remember, the cloud came from off Sinai after the tabernacle was completed, and then it rested on the tabernacle, which kind of shows where he says, build me a sanctuary that I may dwell therein. So the cloud removed from Sinai and rested on the tabernacle, right? And here in this Torah reading and feeding, they're going to break camp, right? They're going to break camp and make that trod. You know what I mean? So here, if they blow with one, then the princes, now, so the princes are the Nasim. Nasi is a prince, and Nasim is princes. Remember the word Nasa, previous Torah portion, Nasa, right? To lift up, ones who are lifted up, chief, right? It also can mean like rising mist, like the rising mist, a vapor. Interesting, that connection, even with the cloud idea, even the fire ascends. The whole idea of ascending, right? And height, Elyon, the highest. Yeah. So right here, from the root, remember Elyon is from Allah, to go up, to ascend. But here we have the Nasi, right? The Nasi right here, the princes, right? Who are, notice what it says, which are, but who are the what? Who are the heads. So in the Hebrew text, Masoretic text, the singular is Rosh, right? But Rashe, right? The Rashe, Rashim, the Rases, Rasim, Rashim, Roshim, right? The Rosh singular head, right? And the Rashes of the Aleph is 1,000. Aleph, right? Aleph is 1,000, right? And then we break it down from Aleph also is cattle, oxen, right? Aleph, like in farming, in possession. Scroll it down. Aleph, we're going down to the roots. Here's where we get to the foundation. Aleph is to what? To learn. To learn. Aleph, to learn. Also can be used in the PL sense to teach, right? In the more of a passive sense, you're learning, right? In an active sense, you are teaching. You know what I'm saying? Causing to learn, like learning one. But here, the meaning to associate with, right? And to learn and to teach, right? In the causative sense, right? So right here, bringing it up. So remember, so this kind of tells us what the role of the princes are, being the heads. Like his Matthew says, to be first in place, one must be first in merit, right? So that title, you know what I mean, also has a purpose. There's a duty connected to it. So the princes who are the heads. This is why when Yisrael went off, right, he went for the heads, who were the Rases, right, of the thousands of Yisrael. Shall do what? Shall gather themselves to thee. So here it's saying that they, when the trumpet blow with this one trumpet, when there's one trumpet, right? Something like that. One trumpet blow, then the princes who are the heads know they must gather to Moshe. All right, just to go over some of the key words. Oh, here, let's get to the word blow, taka. Taka, the root word taka, as he was mentioning, to blow, right? Also to clap, to strike, to sound, to thrust, right? To give a blow or a blast. So in one sense, this word taka, right, when it's used of when it's not used of, say, a trumpet, it can mean to thrust or to drive a weapon, to drive a weapon, to juke, to jerk, bang, it's like what happens when someone blows a trumpet. They give a blast, a blow. You know what I mean? It's like a sudden movement, right? To strike, also to strike or clap hands. Taka, taku, kaf, right? Elsewhere in the scripture says, clap your hands, y'all. Taku, taku. Clap y'all, taku, kaf. Clap your hands or your palms, you know what I mean? Clap the palms of your hands, right? So the Nepal sense, which is like the past sense or the action already being kind of done sense, like it's blown, it's the blast, it's the strike. Like like when one takes a pledge, what they do, they strike hands. Like even today, like like smack hands. Where we get that from? It's like a pledge. We agree to do something, and we smack hands, bang. You know what I mean? That's a pledge, right? In that sense. It's like an ancient action that sometimes we still do today, whether we understand what the ancient was, or we practice it in a neo fugazi way, a pseudo way. But in the true sense, like it's like somebody, the fist bounce is a kind of an aspect of that. You can see to clatter, to slap the hands together, to clang instruments. By analogy, the analogy of this is to drive. Look at the context, right? So the taka is also to drive a nail or a tent pin, right? Or a dart to drive like a nail into the ground, or a tent peg or pin, right? So you see that action, bang, right? Same thing with the horn, bang. You take that breath and you push it out one time, what I mean? Focus it. It's also with the hands too, smack the hands together, right? But it also can be to become a bondsman, right? To become a bondsman, right? By hand clasping. So notice we have the handshake today, right? The taka, ancient taka, is like to become a bondsman by hand clasping. It almost implies an agreement. But now notice we just went all the way down to like the root of the word, right? Getting to the foundation of the word, right? And that word there was just speaking about, in this context, blowing with one trumpet, right? But then as we see the inner meaning of it, taking a pledge, an agreement among men, among fellow servants, right? Then notice the princes, because they're to act, when they hear the sound, they're to act with coordination, act together as one, right? That one sound of the trumpet, right? Then the princes who are the heads, right? So signify those who are the heads, to whom more is given, more is required. Of the thousands of Israel, from each of the tribes, shall gather themselves to thee. Then it says, and the sons of Aharon, the priests, shall blow with the trumpets. Right? Now notice who is telling us who will be doing this, who will be signaling it. Right? So we get with Yisrael coming out of Mitzrayim, we actually get the birth of a nation. We need to look at it as the birth of a nation, right? And under the themes of nationality, of nation. And then under themes here in this fourth book of Moshe, order, organization and order, an organized body. We have the body organized for war, right, with those who are 20 years and above, according to their pedigree. And then also we have the Levites for the holy service in the holy place, what I mean, in the sanctuary, as well as the Kohanim, the priests for the altar, for the altar service. So it says, for they shall be to you for an ordinance, right, forever throughout your generations. That means that these same kind of signals, right, can still be used, right? There was three signals, right? Three specific kinds of signals. So let's go over this right here, just a kind of a brief right here, right? Let's a little bit more, just so we can just full up right here the basic overview, right? It's like, yeah. And if you'll go to war, if you'll go to what? So now here the word for war uses milchama. Another important word to know. Milchama, right? Milchama, right? Battle, war. Milchama, battle, war. The sense of fighting, right? But there's an interesting sense of this word here, right? Battle, war, fighting, battle, engagement. It says that in the Song of the Sea, one of the first songs that Israel sung coming out of Mitzrayim, the Tawid, the two lands called ancient Egypt, was Exodus chapter 15. And that's the first place we find in the record, Yah right? The Savior shout of Yisrael, Yah, being used right there. But you'll find that in that same song of the sea, Shariat Hayam, Yahweh is said to be Ish. He's a Ish. He's a man. He's Ish Milchama. He's a man of war. Ish Milchama, right? Yahweh Shemo. Yahweh is his name. Yahweh Ish Milchama. Yahweh Shemo. He who he be is a man of war, of Milchama, of fighting, battle, engagement, warfare. Yahweh, he who be, Shemo is his name. But now, this word milchama, once again, you see it right here, milchama, what's the root of it? It's an interesting pun on this word here. It's from lacham. So milchama. Now, does that sound a little familiar, like Bethlehem? Beit Lachem, Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem, we would say, or Beit Lachem, right? Lacham means to fight, to do battle, right? To make war, right? To fight, to engage, right? To battle, right? To wage. But in the secondary sense, remember the Hebrew two truths of the word, it also means to eat bread. To eat. The general sense to eat, but to eat as bread, right? Because lechem is bread. Lechem is bread, but lacham is the verb, right? To fight war, to engage in battle, or in the secondary sense, to eat bread. You check out the vowels are important in the real Lashon HaKodesh, right? The holy language, right? The biblical Hebrew. So we have lacham, the verb lacham, right? And then we have lechem, bread, lechem, bread, lacham, right? To go ham, right? So you go ham. He went ham on him, right? Lacham, he lacham on him. To fight, to do battle, to engage in battle, in the nifil of it, right? The nifil of it all, right? To wage war, milchama, right? The nifil, right? Milchama, right? And then the secondary sense, to eat. Remember when Caleb is coming up, right? Caleb, right? When Caleb said he was one of the two spies that brought back a true report, but they were overruled in the eyes and ears of the people by the majority opinion, right? The 10 lying witnesses, the 10 spies that slandered the land. I want to emphasize that Yahweh seems to be most upset, right? Eloheinu was upset about them slandering the land, speaking bad about the land. Because sometimes there might be people in land, but the earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof. Right? Yes, that might be their land, in the context of Yahweh is the landlord, right? You know what I'm saying? So be that as it may, Caleb said, listen, these people, their defenses are nothing. They're nothing for us. He said, we can go up, right? Caleb said, we can go up and we can eat them like bread, right? That's what he said, lacham, right? We can lacham, right? Lachem, right? Lachem. We can go up and we can, basically he was saying that we can do battle with them. It'll be as easy to beat them as eating bread. It'd be like just eating bread. We can consume them. The idea of consume them, right? We can feed on them. We can consume them, right? So there is the figurative sense of the word, right? The literal sense of eating, right? Feeding on something. Figuratively, when you feed on something, you consume it. It's like fire. When fire eats something, fire consumes it, right? And notice when people are hungry, we say like there's a fire in your belly. You have to feed the fire, in your belly. You know what I mean? So even in the figurative sense, there is a lot of truth. By implication, to battle, right? In the sense of destruction or devouring. Right, so here, this is just on this word here where it says here concerning the signals of the trumpets. And if y'all go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresseth or downpresseth, that's Sarah. The enemy that sarahs you, Sarah, that seeks to bind, to narrow, to distress, right? To siege you. You know what I mean? To cramp, cripple, or paralyze you. Paralyze iron, to vex iron, to cramp us, right? The sense of the cramp, sarah. They want to sarah us in our land, right? It says, then you shall blow an alarm. So here we have the alarm. So now the root word is ruah, right? Ruah. right? Ruah right here, right? Right? And we have also teruah, teruah. So teruah, right? And the root verb is ru'ah. Like we say ora, ora, like ora in Hebrew, the ora, ora. Ora has a sense of like wake up, be alert. The ora. You know, so when man, even in the Hebrew scripture, we will say at times ora. Almost like they say in the military, hoorah, hoorah. So where did they get this from, right? The ora, ora. But ora within the Hebrew sense is like awake, be alert. You know what I mean? Be alert, be on the lookout, be on the lookout, that sense right there, right? With the trumpets, so the alarm. So that means there's a certain blast that's just a blast. And then there's a certain type of blast that must be distinguished. So when we hear that blast, we know, okay, that's not the regular blast to get together, or that's not the joy over the offerings. No, that's a blast of an alarm. Like be mentally on foot, right? And y'all shall be remembered. But notice the reason for this in going to war, right? Y'all shall blow an alarm. So the type of blowing of the hatzotzarot, the silver trumpets, would be for an alarm, and y'all shall be remembered, right? So the blowing of this, right, connects with the remembrance. Now notice the zakar, right? Zakar, to be remembered, to call to mind, to remember. And then what's interesting about this word is this word also means right here. Let's see, do they bring it out? Yeah, right down here it says to be male, right? To be male. And after that says to burn Ishans, but it says to be male right there. Boom. To remember to be male. Remember to be a man. We got war going on. Remember to be a man, right? Because Yahweh will remember you. Because remember, Yahweh is Ish Milchama. He's a man of war, right? So you can see the connection within the scripture right there. You know what I mean? Yahweh, right? Ish Milchama. Jehovah is a man of war, Yahweh Shema. And then when there's war in our land and the blowing of that alarm of the trumpets, we shall be zakard, right? Because zakar also means as a verb to remember, and as a noun means to be male, right? We shall be remembered, right? And we shall also remember now to be a man, right? In this engagement that is upon us, right? We'll be remembered before Yahweh Elohim, because Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Elohim, Yod Elohim, Yahweh Eloheinu, our Elohim is Ish Milchama. And there's more conjunction, what's your function, right? And y'all shall be saved, shall be Yasha, right? Yasha, right? Liberated, saved. In the sense of battle, you see what it says in battle, in Milchama, this sense of saved is to be victorious, shall be victorious, right? Shall be victorious from your enemies, right? So right here, then it goes on. There's one more part. So just to understand how these trumpets are to be used. So even in the camp, even the signals, right, are clarified, are given, right? Also in the day of your gladness. So when we have to go to war, there's the alarm. And then in the day of our gladness, in our solemn days, right? The solemn days, the moed is the appointments, the appointed times, right? The appointments, the seasons, and in the beginning of your months. So this is saying that when these silver trumpets. So we're going to do some investigation. Hopefully ones and ones can, disciples help I or co-labor on this. Let's get some good trumpet sounds, so we can distinguish the sounds of these different, what's the sound of the blast? How's the sound of the blast of one trumpet different than the sound of the blast of two trumpets, right? How is that different than the sound of the blast of alarm? What does the sound of the blast of alarm sound like? What does it say in Corinthians? Like as a trumpet gives an uncertain sound. We're going to touch on that before we seal up right here. But here to this Torah portion, to some of the attention to the details. There's a lot going on. Can't get into everything at one time, but this time right here, using this time, right? Y'all shall blow with the trumpets, right? Blow with the trumpets, what? Over, right? Your, right? Burnt offerings. I think we're going to rename this one Ring the Alarm, even though we're not going to play that tune so much because, Yeah, we might, but not right now, right? With trumpets over your burnt offering. So even the trumpets will be blown. But notice it says blow. It didn't say blow an alarm. So there's a difference between this blowing with the trumpet, right? And then the so-called ringing of the alarm, right? Right? With the trumpets over your burnt offerings. So that means even the burnt offerings, you know what I mean? Even when the fire abun, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? There is the blowing, right, of the trumpets, right? I think it was the air horn there, but it can be likened to the trumpet, yeah, not audible. And also over the sacrifice of your peace offering. So the olot, the shelamim, the peace offerings. Why? Why? That they may be to you a memorial. So this idea of the zikron is from zakar, right? But zikron is a memorial, that which is zakard, right? Zikron, right? The zikron or memento, that we may be remembered, right? It's interesting when we really think about it, the whole idea of remembrance, right? And remembering one, when Moshe said, do this in remembrance of me, and also that idea, the opposite idea of forgetting. You know what I mean? It's like most ones would want to be remembered by someone. You know what I mean? And there are ones that you do not want to forget. You know what I'm saying? So just the reason on to remember the whole idea. And what does it cost? It just costs it costs, how can I say, the presence of mind. Yeah, that's what remembrance costs. Remember the Shabbat, right? Zakor et Yom HaShabbat Likadisho. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it set apart, right? You know what I'm saying? Let this mind be in you. You know what I mean? But this now is, we do this so that it may be, that they may be to us a memorial before, right? Elohim, right? Y'all, Elohim, Almighty Power, Creator, Eloheinu, our Elohim, Almighty Power. And then he signs off on this. Notice how he signs off on it, right? It's like when a contract or agreement is made. You ever see those contracts and agreement where it's like maybe 50 pages, right? And it's like every couple of pages, there's a need for a signer, like each part of it. So that means as we study the Torah wisely, we'll see that when he signs off and says in Torah, I am, Yahweh Elohim, it's almost like somebody signing off. You signing your name and then what your relationship or title is, you know what I mean? Vis-a-vis the covenant, vis-a-vis whatever the contract or the agreement is, right? So that means that each of these sections that have this kind of a sign off is particularly important. You know what I mean? Like when you see a agreement, right? 50 pages or even 20 pages, and it's like every 3 pages, there's a signer. There's a need for a signer. That means each part of this agreement is important in itself and in connection with the full, contract or covenant. You know what I'm saying? Now, notice here, right? Remember we had began off from Leviticus 23. That's a good place to go for the 7 feasts and festivals, the overview, right? I would actually recommend ones go regularly to just get a good grasp of it. You know what I mean? Because once you get a good grasp of it, it's kind of, there's more to it that it points to, even in the prophetic and allegorical aspects and new covenant aspects, the new and the living way. And in the 7th month, right? Once again, at the 7th month, right? This is when we come to the 7th month, we're basically sealing up the churchical, the Hebrew churchical or ecclesiastical or the holy part of the year. So it's on this day that Numbers 29:1 speaks of, that became for the tribe of Judah in living in the land and living in the way to become the Rosh Hashanah. And when we say Rosh Hashanah, it's the new year or it's the head of the year, but it's speaking about the head of the civil year, right? The holy year has already begun according to covenant and Torah in the March, April time. By the time we get to the September, October time, we're coming to the end of the holy year. When I said the holy year, the holy part of the year, is those 7 months where we have appointments to keep. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people in their business and their work, you know how this goes. It's like in some months you got to be about business. Some people touring, some people traveling, some people have to be here or there for a couple of months on end, right? Maybe not continually in the activity, but there are these appointments you have to keep. And then there's another part of the year where it's like, it's like the winter time, right? You can rest, you can do something else, or for creatives, you can, return to your creative activity. And then during the other time, in a sense, you more or less work it and get paid for it. In a sense, it's what happens during the agricultural season, from the springtime till we get to the autumnal season. So actually the feast and the 3 times of the year almost covers like 3 seasons, right? And how they are aligned with the agricultural aspects. You see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So I think it's very important for us, even, the called chosen and faithful Rastafari from, I go back to like the original days, always speaking about agriculture, right? And then the Torah here, right? As massive for my part, I glory in the Bible, the Torah right here. We can see that there's an agricultural connection. You know what I mean? And even for us in the Brit Chadash, in the New Covenant, the agricultural aspect is still significant, right? If not through men and people, priests of the order of Aaron, then of course through, our Moshiach, the Kohen Gadol, Yeshua, Hanotri, as Hebrew speaks to us. But here is what we're coming to the end of the year. And here, what you see on the screen, Numbers 29 and 1, is the 7th month on the first day of the month. So the Torah calls the first day of the month, right? Calls this first day of the month the Yom Teruah. Now, you see some places where it's not consistent always in the translation. Here it says blowing. This is on the blowing. Here is teruah. Remember, the teruah elsewhere is the alarm. The teruah, right? The teruah, right? The alarm, right? It says right here, the blowing of the teruah. Now, this is often seen to be the ram's horn, right? This is often seen to be the ram's horn. Although, let me look at this verse here. I do not think that ram's horn, right, comes up anywhere in this particular verse. Let's just look at the verse right here just together for one moment, right? Because we saw one's reasoning on that, so that's a good point, right? In the verse, it does not specify, right, which horn. It just says the blowing of an alarm. But there are times where the shofar is particularly to be blown, and this is one of those times. It says, Uba Chodesh HaShabi'i, and in the 7th Chodesh, like new month, renewed month, right, HaShabi'i, Be Echad, on the 1st, La Chodesh of the month, Mikra Kodesh, is a Mikra, a out-called gathering, Kodesh, that's set apart, Yihyeh, it will be, Yihyeh, it will be, right? Lakem, it will be to you all. Yihyeh lakem, called meleket, right? All the labor, abodah, right? Of all our servile labor, right? Meleket, the works of abodah, of our services. Lo ta'asu, right? Lo ta'asu yom, right? Teruah Yehiel Lakem. So here, it's bringing out that we shall do no serve our work, right? Because it is the day of the blast, right? So this here, right? Not to get into the details of the offering right now, it connects with what we have in Leviticus. This is the same thing here. Speak to the Bnei Yisrael, saying, in the 7th month, same 7th month, Chodesh HaShavi, right? In the 1st, the Echad, right, of the Chodesh, La Chodesh, shall be a what? Notice the word here is not just Shabbat, but it's Shabbaton. Shabbaton. Look at this where I think about reggaeton, Shabbaton, right? It's like a Shabbat, a sabbatical observation. Almost in a sense, a Sabbath of Sabbath, right? Feast of Trumpets. So here's where we have the Feast of Trumpets, right? And the first and the last days of the Feast of Trumpets is also called a Shabbaton, right? So a Shabbaton, a memorial of the blowing of trumpets, right? But notice the word trumpets does not have a word. It just says It's a memorial of the teruah. So the implied sense is that it's not one instrument that's specified. Often, traditionally, it's the shofar because the ram's horn really has that sound, but it can also be the other horns as well, right? Because no trumpet is signified here, right? Just the blowing, just the making of an alarm. Notice that the word blowing here says if they blow taka. Notice that taka is here, right? And then here it says teruah. You see that difference? The English word is blowing, right? But here, this is the teruah. As we studied Numbers chapter 10, we find the teruah is properly defined as the alarm. So when we say ring the alarm, right, this would be the alarm. So the alarm is not just blowing any trumpet, right? That's just blowing a trumpet. Like this is blowing a trumpet, right? But the alarm has to be something specified, right? So when you hear it, nobody has to tell you this is the alarm. You know that was the alarm. No, you're like, I know, because the sound, it gives a certain sound. Our question here is what is that certain sound, right? Of the silver, right? And then we can even ask concerning of the shofar, right? But here, right? One more verse in Numbers. That's the last place in the Torah we have this emphasis, right? On the, what do we have here? Notice what it says, Chatzotzara. This is the silver trumpet, Chatzotzara, right? And Moshe sent them to the war, right? Moses sent them in Numbers 31:6. Remember what it says, and if there's a war arises in your land, in a sense, they're in the wilderness, but since Yahweh is the landlord, the land that they occupied even temporarily, it was their land. Because we're dealing with the landlord. Check, right? And Moshe sent them to the war, right? 1,000, right? Notice 1,000 of every tribe. This is likened to what is said concerning King Solomon, son, right, with the queen of the south, with the queen of Sheba, right? It was said that there was 1,000 firstborn sons sent from each of the 12 tribes with Ben, was it Ibn Hakim, Ben Hakam, right? Ben Hakam, the son of the wise man, the son of Solomon, David the second, some say. David had a son named Solomon. Solomon had a son named David. But the point of it is that this 1,000, right? This is 1,000 of every tribe. Not everybody went, not just whoever wanted to go, but it was 1,000 of each tribe, 12,000. And Phineas, remember Phineas, right? Fi Nahas, right? Brazen mouth, right? Mouth of brass. Phinehas, mouth of brass. Phineas, right? The son of Eleazar, right? Ha-Kohen. He was the son of Eleazar the priest, right? To the war, right? Now notice here, we touched on war earlier, that was milchama in the translation. Here, the word for war is sabah. Sabah, sabah. You might hear say in the modern Hebrew, Sava, the Sava, 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 Sabah. This is where we get Sabaoth. Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, Yahweh of hosts, of armies. This basically means an organized unit, right? An organized campaign. It could be an army, but it's organized. It's organized like an army. Right. And now it's interesting because this word applies to the angels, the heavenly angels, also to the earthly messengers. Also, it applies to the sun, moon, and stars. It also applies to all of creation, because think about all of creation, even different creatures function together in their, according to their kind, right? The service, right? The service here, a mass of persons, right? Organized, right? So the milchama sense is the milchama is the actual war and the engagement. And the tzava, right, is more of the campaign, right? The organized units, right? Literally, right, or figuratively, the sense of hardship and worship. So both, right, the rank and file Israelites. So here in Numbers 31, we get to see an outworking of what we have in Numbers chapter 1, right? Except when we understand the narrative, we know that those who are numbered in Numbers chapter 1 did not get to make it, right, to the promised land. But there was a generation, right? Their children got to make it. But be that as it may, you know what I mean? So it says with the holy instruments. No, it says with the what? The holy instruments, with the holy kelayim, the kelayim, right? Instruments, keli, and instrument, kelayim, instruments, right? And the trumpets, and the what? The trumpets, right? So notice it specifies that when he goes to war, right, or the priest, right, the priest along with the people, you know what I'm saying? So the priest, so notice nowadays they have the cleric, the what is not the cleric, what they call them, the chaplain. So notice the role of the chaplain, right, within the organized, unit, right? There's a chaplain, right? So here the priest, right, to the war with the holy instruments. So you have holy instruments, no doubt speaking of the ark, all right, um, and also the silver trumpets, right? The silver trumpets, right? The silver trumpets, right? To blow, right? To ruah, to ring the alarm, right? You see right here to do the teruah, right? To ring the alarm, the sound of the tempest, the shout, the blast, right? In his hand. Now we're gonna pause there because that's the last place we have in the Torah with the themes of blow and trumpet, right? Blow and trumpet. So the distinguishment right here is about the alarm, right? And the three types of signals. There's three types of signal, right? And one of those signals is an alarm. And the elements or the instruments is the silver, you know what I mean? The silver, the silver horns, right? Bringing this out right here, the two silver horns, right? Here it says two silver trumpets were sounded, right, in unison to gather the whole house, the Beit Yisrael. Trumpets represent voices, right? It says here, right? The Yom Teruah, right, which is the first of the 7th month, corresponding in the latter tradition to Rosh Hashanah, right? The head of the year. Yom Teruah is about the voices of Ephraim and Yehuda, right? This is brought out now in interpretation based on the scriptures, can represent Ephraim, speaking of Israel, the northern, we could say the 10 tribes, the house of Israel, and Judah, Yehuda, the Beit Yehuda, being sounded in unison, together in harmony. When that happens, all Yisrael will arise, it said, and be remembered, and be remembered, and be remembered, right, by the Kadosh Yisrael. That's the part that, it's covered right there by the Kadosh Yisrael, right? Israel's feast and their fullness. So here, just speaking to the sound of the two silver trumpets, new moons, on the new moons, the Yom Teruah, right? And then also we have here, right? You remember in Revelation, it speaks about the three, I think three angels, right? They blast, like the three trumpets, right? So here at the bottom, we'll read the part if you can see it fully. 1 Thessalonians 4:16. For the Lord Ha'adon, right, himself shall descend from Shemaim, from the heavens, with a shout, right, with a shout, yeah, with a voice of the archangel, right, and with the trump, and with the trump of Elohim, of God, and the dead, right, the dead in Moshiach, the dead in Messiah, right, and our high priest Yeshua HaNotri shall what? Shall rise first, and the dead in Moshiach shall rise first. So here we have, this here, and also there's a theme that we have in Revelation as well. So we can understand what Revelation is talking about. It's important for us to just get a good foundation of the principles as they're brought out in Torah. Once again, right here, the Hatzotzerah, right? That's one trumpet, Hatzotzerot, the two trumpets, the silver trumpets, right? Also the fact that these are the trumpets made out of what? Silver, right? And then we have the ram's horn, right? And then also it's looking into the sound. What is the distinguishment of the sound? So we can, understand and hear the sound, right? So this is Numbers, right? Numbers, focus here, Numbers chapter 10, verses 1 to 10, right here, and the two silver trumpets and the Moshiach, All right. But notice something. According to what's written here in Numbers, it says, let's just go over this one more time right here, just to highlight where it says the priest. Where's the priest? Where's the priest? Right? Here we go. 10 and 8. And the sons of Aaron, the priest. So here the connection is the sons of Aaron. So in the new covenant sense, Moshe Yeshua is the Moshiach. He is the Kohen Gadol of the Brit Chadasha, as Moshe, the mediator, right, of the Sinai covenant. Yeshua HaMoshiach, the mediator of the Brit Chadasha, the Adis Kidan. So here, if this is so, we have Yeshua as the high priest, the book of Hebrews, Epistle of Hebrews. Then the fellow priest is what Peter talks about when he says that we are a royal priesthood, right, shall blow, right, with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance forever throughout your generation. So even from this, we can see a new covenant, a new covenant app for that. So once again, right here, we was on this subject for a moment right here. This is, we only have two little audibles right here just to share right here. But this is two audibles. But if ones might come across some better audibles, then please share our world.
Ring the alarm. Ring the alarm. Ring the alarm.
Here. Blowing the silver trumpet. Shema. Yes. So that's just some samples right there. But now, by studying this portion here, we know a little bit more what to look for. But we'll pick up on this right here. Now we have a psalm. Today's daily psalm. Here, according to the royal order here in the season, the reason for the season, in this first of the harvest right here. There's Psalm 48.
Psalm 48.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. God is known in her palaces for a refuge, for lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together, they saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion, and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
Yes, 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 yes. So today's daily psalm, Psalm 48. Now we know that it's the second day, the evening psalm for the second day that they call Monday. But here, today's daily psalm, I'd like to touch on this a little bit right here. But we do have this Torah reading and feeding, so kind of a heads up, a first up right here. Psalm 48. Give me one moment right here just to share this with y'all right here. Today's daily psalm. Okay, before we share the new minka, minka is like a offering a gift. So sometimes we like to make a little new remix, as a new minka. So we got a new minka, right here. But first, we'll share the old one, and then we'll come forward as we get more into today's daily psalm right here. Psalm 48. All right, Psalm 48 right here. Whoa, here we go. Give me one moment. Whoa. And the Zion, even the African Zion connection, the Davidic monarchy. Right? Yes, Rastafari. Here we go.
Lion of Judah Society.
Rastafari. Africa is a must. So nobody post now cause you have to jump on this your bus. Zion born, right?
Psalm 48.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge. For lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together. They saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion, and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בעיר אלוהינו הר קודשו. יפה נוף משוש כל הארץ, הר ציון ירכתי צפון, קריית מלך רב. אלוהים בארמנותיה נודע למשגב, כי הנה המלכים נועדו, עברו יחדיו. המה ראו כן תמהו, נבהלו נחפזו. רעדה אחזתם שם, חיל כיולדה. ברוח קדים תשבר אוניות תרשיש. כאשר שמענו כן ראינו, בעיר אדוני צבאות, בעיר אלוהינו. אלוהים יכונניה עד עולם סלע. דימינו אלוהים חסדך בקרב היכליך. כשמך אלוהים, כן תהילתך על קצווי ארץ, צדק מלאה ימינך. ישמח הר ציון, תגלנה בנות יהודה למען משפטיך. סובו ציון והקיפוה, ספרו מגדליה, שיטו לבכם לחילה, פסגו ארמנותיה, למען תספרו לדור אחרון, כי זה אלוהים אלוהינו עולם ועד, הוא ינהגנו על מות.
Amen, amen, amen. Right there. So Psalm 48, pick up with more on Psalm 48. Right here. Today's daily psalm. But first, right here for this Torah reading and feeding, because there's a lot of interesting, as we keep mentioning, content to the psalm, I think to the psalms, and to the Torah. So our main study is like the Torah reading and feedings and the daily psalms. And since we studied along with the royal order, right? The Israelites of Ethiopia psalms. What's very unique is that as we started to study Torah and then read and study the daily psalm, we start to see how they kind of went together. And that was another testimony of, the Israelites of Ethiopia, plus the evening psalms are the same that are even still used amongst Torah observant, Yehudi, even today, so it's very interesting that corresponds to evening psalms. For example, the evening psalm here for the Wednesday. Oh, we didn't touch on that right there. For the Wednesday right here, the evening psalm is Psalm 94, right? Psalm 90. Well, for the fourth day that is called Wednesday. But we're trying to get that also in the proper order, because actually, right, when we gather together, at this particular time, and even some of the brothers and sisters are actually in the boker. The boker is like the dawn, the day. The day is breaking in some regions of the world, right? So really, by the time we come into the evening in the West, it's the evening of the next day, right? So that's been shown and proven to us, and we've been just doing it in the the conventional way. So here it's like Wednesday evening, right? And the Wednesday evening, that's what it's called in the West. But that evening is really the evening of the fifth day coming in, right? The fourth day has already gone, right? Since the principle is evening and morning. So, how can I say, abide with I on that process of kind of updating. But so the evening psalm is Psalm 94, right? But more properly, that would be chanted from the eve before. Just want to point that out right there. So, but still, right here, from low degrees to high degrees, as well. So we have Psalm 94, right? Let's bring out Psalm 94 right here. Just a look on Psalm 94, right? It is a plea for divine judgment, a plea for divine judgment here on the Jah vengeance. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, and he gives his people what they need when they need it. So here's a plea for divine vengeance. Evening song.
Psalm 94.
מזמור צד.
O Lord God, to whom vengeance belongeth.
אל נקמות אדוני.
O God, to whom vengeance belongeth, show thyself.
אל נקמות הופיע.
Lift up thyself, thou judge of the earth.
הנשא שופט הארץ.
Render a reward to the proud.
השב גמול על גאים.
Lord, how long shall the wicked,
עד מתי רשעים אדוני, 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 אדוני.
how long shall the wicked triumph?
עד מתי רשעים יעלוזו, 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 יעלוזו.
How long shall they utter and speak hard things?
יביעו ידברו עתק, 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 עתק.
And all the workers of iniquity boast themselves.
יתאמרו כל פועלי אבי, 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 אבי.
They break in pieces thy people, O Lord, and afflict thine heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger, and murder the fatherless. Yet they say, the Lord shall not see, neither shall the God of Jacob regard it. Understand, ye brutish among the people, and ye fools, when will ye be wise? He that planted the ear, shall he not hear? He that formed the eye, shall he not see? He that chastiseth the heathen, shall not he correct? He that teacheth man knowledge, shall not he know? The Lord knoweth the thoughts of man, that they are vanity. Blessed is the man whom thou chastenest, O Lord, and teachest him out of thy law, that thou mayest give him rest from the days of adversity, until the pit be digged for the wicked. For the Lord will not cast off his people, neither will he forsake his inheritance. But judgment shall return unto righteousness, and all the upright in heart shall follow it. Who will rise up for me against the evildoers? Or who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity? Unless the Lord had been my help, my soul had almost dwelt in silence. When I said, my foot slippeth, thy mercy, O Lord, held me up. In the multitude of my thoughts within me, thy comforts delight my soul. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous, and condemn the innocent blood. But the Lord is my defense. My God is the rock of my refuge. And he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, the Lord our God shall cut them off.
Yeah. That's beautiful right there. How the it just panned off right there. Cut them off. So right here for this Torah reading and feeding right here now. The day, Wednesday, this is evening now, nighttime. So Erev Tov, Laila Tov, and Boker Tov, So good evening, good night, and good break of day, new day for those in regions where it's the new day. So here, instead of being behind the day, because we've often been like behind the day, because, this is coming from, if I say this is Wednesday evening psalm or the evening psalm for Wednesday, we're going to look at evening for that day, Wednesday, all of that. So hopefully to clarify it, still we might still observe that to a degree so that ones don't get, confused. But the evening, when the evening comes in, right, according to where Yahweh Eloheinu, according to the instruction, directions in the scripture, when it says they shall think to change times and laws, like notice, on Friday Eve, we're thinking about Shabbat time, Sabbath time, right? Friday evening is Shabbat time. Why is that, right? Why is the Friday evening, right? We actually prepping, for the day to come. So the evening come before the day, right? So the same principle applies to all the other days as well. Just that's kind of like the point right here, right? So don't have all the audibles up right now, but that means that actually, it would be the evening psalm, I think Psalm 81, actually, for the day that's coming forward, right? This is in the Torah way, right? But then in the way, we're still in the world, but as we come out of that understanding, and be even able to see both understandings, like, well, this is how it's done, but this is how it should be done, right? So this is a kind of a process getting from being behind the day and getting up to the day. Right. So instead of the psalm for what they would call Wednesday evening, right, understand that the eve is really the fourth day, the eve, right, the eve of the fourth day. That means this Psalm 94 would actually be from what they call Tuesday evening, right, because looking forward. By the time the eve comes in, it's already the beginning of the next day, right? According to what the Torah say, right? So be that as it may, right there, for here. So it's a gradual process. You know what I'm saying? It's a gradual process. So any ones that can help as well, because ones have good ideas, for looking at these things too, when we understand what we're looking at, iron sharpen iron. But here we had the fourth reading, right? Normally fourth reading, right? The Wednesday here, the fourth day will be Wednesday. So we're still touching the fourth reading right here. So here we have the fourth reading. We touched on this already from previous, trying to get ahead, ahead of the day. You know what I mean? Or catch up with Yah's way, right? Here in the fourth reading, right? Numbers chapter 9, verses 15 to chapter 10, verse 10. Now, we basically touched on this already, even within the opening, ring the alarm, section of the reasonment, right? Getting into like the horns and the different blasts, what's different between the blast or the blow and an alarm, and what are the three signals. So right here, just to go through like a quick overview, the fourth reading, that started the day that the tabernacle was set up. Let's keep note of that. That started from the very day that the tabernacle was set up, right? The cloud covered the tabernacle by day. So now that cloud, that's known as the cloud before it was on the mount, right? And therefore, after the tabernacle was pitched, the tent everything was put up, then the cloud, abode on the tabernacle. During the day, they saw the cloud, and during the night, as the scripture says, there was the mare, there was the appearance of Aish, the appearance of fire, right, by night. Whenever the cloud lifted from the tent, right, the Bnei Yisrael, they would follow it until the cloud settled. So when the cloud lifted, right, and started to move, the first thing, no doubt, ones would hear they would hear the trumpets, right? They would hear the chatzotzerot, they would hear the silver trumpets, according to how the movement, first the east, then the south, then after that, the camp of Levi, right? The Levites and the tabernacle, it's a tabernacle crew, they would begin to, dismantle things. And then it would be the west side. West side was Ephraim. Yeah, Ephraim, if I'm correct. Yeah, there was Judah, right? Judah, the east side. Reuben, right? The south side, right? Ephraim, the west side, and Dan, right? The north side. That's how they would move. But they'll move from Judah to Reuben. Those two would move out, and then the Levites, the Levites would move out in their order, right? And then Ephraim would move out, right? And then Dan would be the rear guard. You know what I mean? So we can even see that particular order right there. So whenever the cloud, lifted up, the Israelites would follow it until the cloud settled, wherever the cloud stood, or in a sense parked. That's where the tabernacle would be set up, and then the Israelite camp would be set up, right? According to the, the holy place, right? Because that's the center, foundation, groundation in the holy place. And the Israelites they make camp there, and they'll stay as long as the cloud stayed, right? So the cloud stayed for a short time or for a long time. When the cloud lifted up again, then the movement. So Yahweh told Moshe to have 2 silver trumpets to be made to summon the community and to set it in motion. Upon long blast, there's the long blast of the 2 horns. So 2 horns blasting long. That'd be a good sound effects to take the horn, right, and double it over to 2 of them at the same time. That would be interesting, right? Upon 2 long blasts of 2 horns, right, the whole community was to assemble before the entrance, right, before the entrance of the tent of meeting, right, before the entrance of the tent of meeting. Let's see over here. Okay, that's Numbers chapter 10, verse 3. All right, so let's go over here. Numbers chapter 10, right here, verse 3. And when they shall blow the long blast with them, so 2 of them on a long blast, that's the taka, the taka, right? All the assembly, right? All the Ada is the congregation, the gathering, right? All the gathering, right? Remember, the aid is a witness. You see, witness, testimony. It could be evidence of things or the witness of people, right? The witness of people, right? Then this word further breaks down to a recorder, a prince. You see what it says, a prince? So notice when it's about the witnesses, the princes, gathering together, right? When we gather together for the holy, the Ada, right? So here, all the assembly, right, shall assemble, Ya'ad, they shall assemble, Ya'ad, like meet up, right, themselves, right, at the door, at the Petach. So here we have the Petach, Fetah, like Fitah Neges, Fetach, right? This is the word, the opening, the entrance, the Petah of the Ohel Moed. So you see what you see, tabernacle of congregation, to keep it direct, right? It's the tent, the Ohel, right? Moed, the tent of meeting. So the tent of meeting, right? The tent of meeting, right? The tent of meeting, right? So that's that verse right there. Let's go back over here. Take that off right there. So it says the entrance of the tent of meeting upon the blast of one. So with one blast, right? On the blast of one, the chieftains, like what it says, the Rases, right? The Nasim, the heads, and the Roshim, the princes who are the Rases or the Rashim, right? Short blast. Now the short blast, they directed the divisions encamped on the east to move forward. So you see how over here in the breakdown, it's distinguishing long blast from short blast. As we study the Hebrew, how it is built, tell us those differences, right? So over here, they're able to distinguish over here the long blast from the short blast. But that can be brought out as we look at the biblical Hebrew, right? And the proper pointing. So the short blast, they directed the divisions in camp on the east to move forward, right? And a second set of short blasts directed those on the south to move forward, right? It's time to move out, right? As well, this short blast was sounded when the Israelites were at war against an aggressor who attacked them, right? So the difference between the long blast, right, whether it was two or whether it was one, and then the short blast, right? And the trumpets were sounded on joyous occasions. All right. Now, it doesn't really go into how the trumpets were sounded, but I guess the occasion would determine that, right? Right. Were to be sounded on joyous occasions, festivals, right? New moons, right? Burnt offerings and sacrifices of well-being. And as we went into there in the scripture, right? That's at Numbers chapter 9 and 10, right? It specifically says so that we would be remembered before Yahweh Eloheinu. So here we would like to just look ahead, right, and go to the fifth reading, right? The fifth day's reading, and this is Numbers chapter 10, verses 11 to 34. Right? Now in the fifth day's reading, the fifth day's aliyah, it's in the second month of the second year. You see what just happened? What just happened is time, right? Right? Up here, over here, it says right here in the fourth reading, starting the day that the tabernacle was set up, a cloud covered the tabernacle by day, and a fire rested on it by night. Now, this is Numbers chapter 9, 15 to 16. So in the fourth reading, it's letting us know what happened, right? Starting with the day, right, that the tabernacle was set up, right? And what day was the tabernacle set up, right? Remember how this whole narrative is picking up where Exodus leaves off. We come to the second year, right? Remember earlier in the same reading here, right, in the same aliyah here, we have Passover. The Passover, the anniversary of the Exodus occurs, right, in the second year, right, the first month, and they observe that Passover. So that means that the tabernacle was already what? Tabernacle already set up, right? First month, and then we come here in the reading here to the second month. So in the second month of the second year, the cloud lifted from the tabernacle. So where we see the instructions were given after they received the instruction. Then in the next month, the cloud is lifted, right, from the tabernacle. And the Bnei Yisrael, they set out on their journey, right, from the wilderness of Sinai to the wilderness of Paran, right? Moshe, he asks Hobab, son of Reuel. Now, elsewhere, this one is called Jethro. Remember Jethro, right? Moshe's Midianite father-in-law, the Midianite, the priest of Midian, right? To come, he asks him to come with the Bnei Yisrael, to come with the Israelites, promising to be generous with him. However, he, Hobab, son of Reuel, now Reuel is elsewhere identified as Jethro, right? So Jethro was his father-in-law and the son of Reuel. You know what I'm saying? You could say like his kind of brother-in-law, right? Right here. But he replied that he would return to his native land. Now, Moshe pressed him again, right? Noting that he could serve as the Israelites' guide. He even says to him that, you could be, you know the land, you know the way, right? This further proves that where they were at was Arabia, right? What is called the Araba or the Arabia region, right? And not the Sinai Peninsula. But be that as it may, they marched 3 days distance from Har Sinai, from Mount Sinai, with the Ark of the Covenant. So now the Ark of the Covenant comes into view, and the Ark of the Covenant is in front of them, right? And Yahweh's cloud is above them by day. So this is the Torah portion right here, picking up with Numbers chapter 10, right here at verse 11. So let's also pay attention to the time. You know what I mean? Because now we can see the progression of what we're reading about. Okay, this happened around the first month, right, of the second year. And then, the cloud was taken up and they left Sinai, in the second month of the second year. You know what I mean? And the tabernacle was pitched when the tabernacle was pitched in the second year, right? Set up in the second year, right? The first month, right? So over here, there's another word I want to just zoom in on right here. Where is the word? Is the word here? Is the word journeys? Journeys? Where the word journeys? Okay, now we have masa, and we have nasa. Let's see. Let's scroll up here for one moment now. Because we was talking about NASA and, what it means and so forth and so on. But let's go over here. I think it's over here, journey. Okay, here we go. Now this is the verb. Masa or masa is like the you're picking up to go and now you're going, right? The nasa. So this is nasa, but it looks the same as NASA when you're looking at the Latin, like the English letters. But if you look at the Hebrew letters, you'll notice that it's the ayin at the end. So that would distinguish the sound from nasa, and from nasa. So we have nasa and we have nasa, and nasa, right? So this is nasa, right? Although, like I said, in English, it does look similar. It looks the same, right? And I guess learn by teaching to really distinguish that and then point you to the Hebrew glyphs and the proper enunciation. But this means to pull up, right? To pull up. So nasa. But it's a kind of interest because it's the same letters. Well, it's the same, it's a similar sound, right? But it's different letters in the Hebrew. But when it's transliterated, like how do you symbolize a hard A from a soft A? And you know what I mean? Interesting, right? No pun intended, no diddy either, right? But how do you distinguish a hard A, from a soft A? You know what I'm saying? In English, you can't, but in the Hebrew, you can. So this is nasa. So nasa is the pull out, right? The pull up, right? To set forward. Basically, it's like to pull up the stakes in the camp. Where the tents are nailed down and so forth and so on. So to pull up, especially the tent pins, that is to start on a journey. So starting on a journey, right after you're in camp, is to pull up those tent pins, literally. But it's also you're pulling up the camp, right? The camp is ready to, you're like kind of uprooting. The idea is like you're uprooting the camp, and we're about ready to move forward on the tribe. So this word here, nasa, right? Nasa is for journey here. This is the verb. And then when we come down here to this Torah, this aliyah right here, right? It says right here in verse 12, it says journeys. Now here's masa, right? Masa, right? Not to be confused with masa. It is masa and masa. Masa, right? Right. So here is masa, right? A pulling up. Like masa is a burden. Masa. Masa always was a burden, right? Masa, right? But that's masa, which means a burden, something you nasa. So masa is something that you nasa, right? And masa is something that you have nasa, right? So just to distinguish those right there, right? A little bit more than tomato, but here a pulling up of stakes. You're breaking. Pray the eye, so you can see it on the screen right here. Yeah, masa, right? Masa, right? From nasa is to pull up, like it's the journey. Once you have nasa, the tent pegs, and packed everything up, you're ready to go on your masa, right? Distinguished from the other word, right? Nasa, right? Lifting up, right? To lift up, and masa, something lifted up. So it's like we say masa, different than masa, right? Masa, right? So these are two different, but the English, like I said, can confuse, because, they don't have that nuance in the Gentile language. But we can study to show ourselves approved. So here it's the departure from striking the tents, right? That is, it's the march. Ready to march out, right? And it's not necessarily a single day's travel. This can be a single day travel, right? The Masa, right? But it can also be a longer travel. The implication is like a station, like stopping at different stations, right? Or a point of departure, right? Of journey. So here, let's go back to this verse here. Here's where we begin right here for the 5th day's aliyah right here in this Torah reading and feeding. Beha'alotekha Shema Yisrael. Here it is.
And here, give ear, Shema, 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 Shema. We are at the Hamishi Aliyah for this Torah portion reading and feeding for Shabbat Beha'alotekha here at the Hamishi Aliyah, 4th book of Moshe, Hebrew book of Numbers chapter 10, here verse 11 to verse 34 for the Hamishi Aliyah. Wayehi ba shana ha-shenit ba chodesh ha-sheni be-esarim ba chodesh na'ila ha-anan me-ala mishkana ha-edut. Here for the Hamishi Aliyah, from Sinai to the Kadesh Barnea. First item, the first march, the halt in Paran. Verse 11 for the Hamishi Aliyah for this Shabbat Beha'alotekha. And it came to pass on the 20th day of the 2nd month, the 2nd moon in the 2nd year, that Ha'anan, the cloud, was taken up from off the tabernacle of the testimony. The cloud was taken up from off of the tabernacle of the testimony. And the Bnei Yisrael, the children, the sons of Yisrael, took their journeys out of the Midbar, out of the wilderness of Sinai, the wilderness of Sinai, and Ha'anan, and the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran. And they first took their journey according to the commandment of the Yahweh by the hand of Moshe, according to the mouth of he who be, by the hand of Moses. Al pi Yahweh b'yad Moshe. Al fi Yahweh b'yad Moshe. In the first place went the standard of the camp of the Bnei Yehuda. The Bnei Yehuda, the children of Judah, according to their armies. And over his host was Nahshon, the son of Aminadab. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Yissachar was Nathaniel, the son of Zuar. And over the host of the tribe of the children of Zebulun was Eliab, the son of Helon. And the tabernacle was taken down, and the Bnei Gershon, the sons of Gershon, and the Bnei Merari, the sons of Merari, set forward, bearing the tabernacle. And the standard of the camp of Reuben set forward according to their armies. And over his host was Elizur, the son of Shedeur. And over the host of the tribe of the Bnei Simeon, the children of Simeon, was Shelumiel, the son of Zori Shaddai. And over the host of the tribe of the Bnei Gad, the children of Gad, was Eliasaph, the son of Deuel. And the Kohathites set forward, bearing the sanctuary. And the other did set up the tabernacle against they came. And the standard of the camp of the children of Ephraim set forward according to their armies. And over his host was Elishama, the son of Amihud. And over the host of the children of Manasseh, and over the host of the tribe of the Bnei Manasseh, the sons, the children of Manasseh was Gamaliel, the son of Pedahzor. And over the host of the tribe of the Bnei Benjamin, the sons of Benjamin, the children of Benjamin, was Abidan, the son of Gideoni. And the standard of the camp of the children of Dan, the Bnei Dan, the sons of Dan, set forward, which was the reward of all the camps throughout their hosts. And over his host was Achiezer, the son of Ammishaddai. And over the host of the tribe of the Bnei Asher, the children, the sons of Asher, was Pagiel, the son of Okran. And over the host of the tribe of the Bnei Naphtali, the children, the sons of Naphtali, was Ahira, the son of Enan. Thus, like this, were the journeyings of the Bnei Yisrael, of the children, the sons of Yisrael, according to their armies when they set forward. And Moses, said to Hobab, the son of Raguel, the Midianite, Moshe's Choten, Moses' father-in-law. We are journeying, I and I are journeying, are trodden. We are journeying to the place of which the Yahweh said, I will give it you. Come thou, the I with us, with I, and we, I, will do thee good. For the Yahweh have spoken good concerning Yisrael. And he said to him, I will not go, but I will depart to mine own land and to my kindred. And he said, leave us not, leave I not, I pray thee, I pray thee, for as much as thou knowest how we are to encamp Bamidbar in the wilderness, and thou, the eye, mayest be to us, to I instead of eyes. And it shall be, if thou go with us, with I, yea, it shall be that what goodness the Yahweh, Yod-Heh, Weh-Heh, shall do to us, to I, the same will we, I, do to thee, the I, 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 the I. And they departed from the mount of the Yahweh, 3 days' journey. And the ark of the covenant of the Yahweh went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. And Anan, the cloud of the Yahweh, was upon them by day when they went out of the camp.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So we have the ark of the covenant, the ark leading the way, the ark of the covenant leading the way when the Israelites were making that track. So that's also interesting, a note right there as well. Now we do have a very interesting connection with Psalm even 48 as well. Think about Rhema tune. Let me share this prophet Adam, Africa, the holy place right here. Haven't shared it for a moment. It's a beautiful tune right here. And then we'll pick up with even today's daily psalm. Now, there's some points to be brought out, but I know we touched on the trumpet, just to let this kind of marinate for a moment right here. Art going forward.
Listen, my brother. Listen, my brother. Africa. Listen, my sister. Listen, my sisters. Aye. We have to go now. 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 Whoa. We have to go now. We have to go now. Yes, we have to go now. Africa, you are the best, and I know there is no time to wait. Africa, the only base, and I know there is no time to waste. So many people know you, but I still can never show respect. So many talk about you, but I still can never see you yet. Repatriation is a must. Down here we don't know who to trust. Down there in a Babylon, free salvation is a must. For those that don't man us right, we have elected evil world wickedness and turned into an African godliness. Good over evil and an Arab X. No question, the king is the highest. We build Africa, most holy place Ethiopia. We build Africa, such an amazing grace. Yo, Africa, you are other place, and I know there is no time to waste. Africa, the only place, and I know there is no time to waste. So many people know you, but I still them never show respect. So many talk about you, but I still them never seen you yet. It is more than the world is filled with confusion. Some people can't find a solution, but Rastafari God and clear. King Emmanuel, him is there. Messiah God, we show us a sign. We go reach there. So what the next is this time? Beat the drum. Time to say goodbye to Satan kingdom. Watch out them try run from the judgment. What the next is this time? Home to Zion. Time to say goodbye, Babylon gone. Watch how them try hide from the judgment. Hey, Africa, you are the place, and I know there is no time to wait. Africa, the only place, and I know there is no time to waste. So many people know you, but I still them never show respect. So many talk about you, but I still them never seen you yet. Lord, Africa, you are the place, and I know there is no time to wait. Africa, the only place, and I know there is no time to waste. So many people know you, but I still them never show respect. So many talk about you, but I still them never seen you yet. We have to go now, 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 we have to go now. So you know we go now. Yes we have to, yes we have to, yes we have to, yes we have to. We have to go now. Africa we go now. Repatriation is about. Down here we don't know to trust. Free salvation is about us. Yaga you, but don't say oh man that's alright. Rastafari, Africa you are the place, and I know there is no time to wait. Africa the only place, and I know there is no time to waste. So many people know you, but I still them never show respect. So many talk about you, but I still them never seen you yet.
Yes, Ross Adam right there. Now there's a point in here, but I don't have all the presentation for it ready right now. But there's an interesting hold on for a moment. Yeah, there's an interesting point right here. So they set out Paran. Let me see if I can find the Paran right here. Paran. Okay, yeah. I think I got it right here. Paran. Here, so they set out, right? So there's these 42 stations, like 42 spots, right? And it's interesting when we read these 42 places the B'nai Yisrael, camped at, and we get a basic good understanding of what these names mean and the general idea of what occurred there. Some look at this as almost like a way, like the steps in salvation. It's just interesting how the names of these places, and also some of the warfare or wrestling that took place at these places. Now, here in this Torah reading and feeding right here, boom. Let's get this right here. Okay, it's coming up when we get into the malcontents. All right, so far all that we're reading of here in Beha'alotekha is concerning the directions, instructions, right, that Yahweh gave to Moshe and to Levi, and how the camp was put into a good order, and the birth of this nation. One first point is the ordering, right? Even down to the signals, the various different signals. Let me see if I can bring this out as well. Let me share some of this right here. Let me share some of the screen right here for you, Chaverim. Okay, yeah. So in looking up some things, this was kind of interesting right here. The Christ-like figure here. You know what I mean? In the center. But then you see these trumpets, like giving out these trumpets. You see that the angels have these trumpets in this icon here, right? But let's go over here, and then there's this kind of interesting, like these kind of interesting trumpets. But I remember seeing in among the Israelites of Ethiopia and the Orthodox Nazarenes, aka Christians, in the Orthodox Church, these kind of you see these kind of horns right here, right? And then as we start to study on the Torah reading and feeding of the trumpets, it's like, remember seeing that even in some videos, they're blowing these kind of trumpets. Now they might not be silver, these right here, maybe brass, but still we can see both the purpose of it, right? And also the people, you know what I mean? And we can make those connections that, okay, this was something on like how Martin Luther, the Protestant Reformation, how the Protestant Reformation may have been prompted or even inspired by the Ethiopian and the Israelite church resistance, to the Roman Catholic pressure. Let's put it like that, and antichrist activities of the Roman Catholic, when it was saying that the Ethiopian church was too Jewish and, it kept the Shabbat and some kosher things and other things. Yeah. So here's also another picture here. That's an interesting picture here of this kind of, it's not silver, no, but still we can, it's a good template. You know what I'm saying? And then we have to ask, well, why were they doing this? Well, since the Tawahedo Church, as Professor Ephraim Isaacs, mentions, is the most Jewish or Judaic, Israelitish of the so-called Christian churches, right? So there we have a kind of direct link to what some might call the Jewish, Judaic, Messianic movement, or even the Jewish church or the Yehudi church, the first church actually that was that Yehudi church. That's what we read about in the New Covenant scripture. So some of these kind of horns right here, so this is a little bit on the horns and the alarm, just kind of profiling some of these basics, and then hopefully others can, present some of their reasonings or revelations on these things as well, right? And we can take it into consideration. So this is that sense, of what the scripture is instructing the B'nai Yisrael to do. We see among the remnant, even among the Israelites of Ethiopia, and in the true church, this is one of the elements of the true church in the professing, you say Ethiopian and Tawahedo and Christian churches, yeah? So here, this as well, right? There's kind of some interesting shots here of the trumpets, right? And this right here, I remember seeing these small trumpets. You see the small one right there, right? Now this is something totally different. It was on something called the trumpet. Okay, right? We'll touch on those things as they come up. There's room for that in the Torah reading and feeding. I don't know if this was ancient Mitzrayim, but I know in Mitzrayim we've seen some trumpets like this, and also these here, and also amongst the diaspora here in the Americas and Caribbean, especially in the Americas, the big band, for them ball games and football games, the big band, the marching bands and everything, and hearing those trumpets. Maybe we need to sample some of those trumpets too. You know what I'm saying? Since it's of the people, right? So right here, once again, just a couple of more kind of samples right there. Okay, so yeah. All right, so right here now on the Pa'ar. Now, of course, there's some more here, but we'll be sharing hopefully more of this right here, right? And in the Amharic, they call it the Meleket, the Meleket, right? The Meleket. So right here, some grabs right there. Okay, I'm gonna scroll through some of this, but you'll be seeing more of this right here. Okay, so now they were at, right? They were here, the 12th station, the desert of Sinai. Okay, let me bring this off for one moment. Right there. Okay, desert of Sinai, the Midbar Sinai. So this is from, I'll try to get more of them in order, right? But as we're going through, there's different spots they were at. Rephidim, right? And they were at the desert of Sinai. This was a Jethro that I found. Jethro, Moses' father, in-law, priest of Median on Bible Insights. Well, maybe because he's a Medianite, that they have him more melanated. Be that as it may it as it be. Well, it was good to see. Let's move on right here. Some were speculating that perhaps Mount Sinai, Tabera, Mount Sinai, and looking at, the Horn of Africa, for a possible location. We can revisit that, right there. But let's go over here. So they're about to get to the Kibrot HaTa'ava. The Kibrot HaTa'ava. That's coming up in this Torah portion, right? There's a place called up here Tabera. Now Tabera mean like a place of Ba'ar. Ba'ar means like burning, a place of burning, right? So the people are going to complain about, like, the mixed multitude is going to complain, and then the Israelites are going to complain, and there's going to be all these complaints and everything. They're going to have a lust and a greed for flesh, right? They're going to be buried in a place called the Kibrot Hata'ava, right? Right? They're going to get burned at Tabera, right? And so these names are interesting, of interest, right? These are the spots. But here is the place that we want to zoom in on, the Pa'ar and the Farai, right? We call this the Farai, right? And like Rastafari, Farai, right? Like in Amharic we have Ferah, right? As the root, like Tefera, one to be like respected or one to be feared. Tefera and Teferi, one, the one to be feared. Tefera, like dreadful, like what says Yahweh's name is like holy, and yet Teferano, it is like awe-inspiring, right? But now this comes from Pa'ar, right? Pa'ar also pointed as Fa'ar, like we say Phineas, Phi, Fe, and Peh. So often this is like a Peh, Fe, in the Hebrew, right? But here Pa'ar also is enunciated as Fa'ar, right? So we say Farai, Fa'ar. What does Fa'ar mean? It means to glean, right? To embellish, right? To boast. And now this is the root of Tiferet, Fa'ar, right? Also it means to explain. Fa'ar, to make like clear or to clear oneself, right? In an agricultural sense of the word, it means to shake, like when you shake a tree, right? Like you shake a tree of all the loose things, you know what I mean? In that sense, yeah, right? But now this word is brought out in translation as beautify or to boast self and to go over the boughs. The boughs, like, when you're growing, like during agricultural time, the trees and the boughs of the trees, of the goodly trees, yeah, to go over that, so it has an agricultural significance. Then it says to glorify, also to glorify self, right? To glory, to vaunt self. Now, this word is used in connection with Aaron and the anointed and his sons, their garments, tifara, tiferet, the Tafari sense right there. But this is the Pa'ar, and how Pa'ar is related to this next spot that they're about to go to, Paran. So we have the place called Paran or Paran, right? Paran. And this is said to be in the desert of Arabia, right? So this is the part here, and beginning off this 5th day's Aliyah on the 20th day of the 2nd month in the 2nd year, that the cloud, the Anan, the cloud lifted, right, was taken up, right? The cloud, Na'ala, right? Allah, Na'ala is the Nepho sense of it. It was taken up, Na'al, right? The Anan was Na'al, right? Na'al, it went up, it was taken up, right? It took itself up from off the tabernacle, from off of the Mishkan. Now notice here that the tabernacle is called right here the Mishkan, right? The Mishkan, the holy place, right? The dwelling place. Literally, the Mishkan is from Shakan, like Shekinah, Shakan, right? So we have Mishkan here, right? The dwelling place, the tabernacle, right? The word became flesh and Shakan, Shakanya, Shakan amongst us, right? Shakan, right, is to settle down or to dwell, to tabernacle, and the Mishkan is the place of Shakaning. He says, build me a Mishkan, dwelling place, so I may dwell amongst you. So notice, not every place we see tabernacle in English is particularly the same word. Sometimes it just says the tent of meeting, the tabernacle of the congregation, the ohel. That's the ohel moed. Here it refers to the tabernacle as the mishkan. Because why does it specify this here? Why doesn't it just say the tabernacle and the ohel of the edut? No, it's the mishkan. It's a dwelling place. It's the dwelling place, the place of shakaning of the edut. You know what the edut is? The edut is the 10 words. The edut is the 10 words. The edut it's a noun feminine. It's regarding those tablets. It's like Yahweh's affidavit. What he wrote on those 2 tablets was placed into the ark for safekeeping, right? And that there was like his witness. So somebody said, well, how are you saying that Yahweh spoke to you? Like, boom, the ark. The ark is like a testimony, and the sanctuary is a testimony for the testimony that's in the ark. You see what I'm saying? That's the sense right there. So by this verse reading in this sense, it is specifying that the cloud also signified his presence there, as it was on the Mount Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai. The cloud was there and his presence was there. So the reason why verse 11 reads this way, instead of saying the Ohel Moed, right, is talking about the Mishkan, right, of the Edut, right? It's talking about the dwelling place of the testimony, the dwelling place of the testimony. So the cloud is connected with his dwelling, right? And now that being lifted up, right? The gospel in the sanctuary, right? That I may dwell, you see right there, that I may dwell amongst them. Let them build me a sanctuary, that I may dwell. So now with the cloud being lifted up, it's like the journey is beginning, you know? It's like our guest or the host with the most is moving forward, and we need to, since we're in covenant with him, we need to keep moving with him. So then it says here that the Bnei Yisrael took their journeys, ma'aseh hem, right? The ma'aseh hem, right, out of the wilderness. Notice out of what? Out of the Midbar. Now this is the 12th spot. The Midbar, right? The Midbar, scroll back. The Midbar Sinai, the wilderness of the thorny wilderness. Remember Sinai, right? Links with thorn. Like remember, it was the bush, the thorn bush. Some might say rose bush, but it was a thorn bush that was on fire but was not consumed by the fire that it was on, right? So the cloud, it says rested. So the cloud lifted up. The Israelites took their journey from that wilderness, the 12th of the 42 spots, right? And the cloud, the Anan, the cloud rested, right? Here it's Shakan. Now notice the word for rest here is not the other words. It's not the word Shabbat for rest. It's not the word nuach for rest, or nafash for rest, but it's the word Shakan for rest, because that means it settled down, it dwelt. So the connection of Yahweh's presence, right, even by the sign, right, of the cloud. So the cloud rested where? In the wilderness, in the Midbar, right? You know, remember this book, 4th book, by Midbar, in the wilderness. Or maybe it implies in the various different wildernesses, but generally speaking, in the wilderness, right, of Paran. Paran. Right, Paran. Now here they have BDB say a place of caverns. Maybe. Right, it says on the south by the desert of Sinai, on the east by the valley of Araba. Araba is like Arabia, right? The dry, the desert. The Exodus, they say, was through this area, and probably all 18 stops, right, were in this area, right? 18 stops. Right. So remember, in total, scripture points out, if I'm correct, 42. Right. If I'm correct, 42. That number 42 is interesting, but here it's ornamental. Right. The root of this is the pa'ar, or the fa'ar. Fa'ar, like you say, farai. Right. Teferi, farai. Right. Pa'ar. Right. To glory, to beautify, to adorn. Right. To be glorified. But in the agricultural sense, is to go over the boughs, something that a farmer or agriculturalist would do, you know, with the trees and the growth, right? But it's interesting, this word also can mean to embellish, in a figurative sense to make a boast, but also to explain, or to shake a tree, right? To shake a tree, right? Then it's peora. Now notice the peora or peora, pora, or pura. So this word in different dialects may be said as peora, pora, or pura, right? So peora, right? Pora, pura is a bow, which is like a branch, a shoot, right? Just think about the reason for the season, agriculturally speaking, the foliage, including the limbs, right? As what? As bright green, right? As bright what? As bright green, right? Properly it's said here to be an ornamentation, but here we can see the agricultural significance and connection. So pa'ar here, back to the verb root, right there, right? And then the pura, right? Peora, the branch, right? The branch. This man who is the branch. So I just want to bring that out here, just even in the name, right? And since we see this verse here, they first, right, took their journey, right? Rishon, the primary, the first, the Rishon, right, took their ma'asehem from Nasa, right? According to the what? According to the peh. Now, notice the translation says, according to the commandment of Yahweh by the hand of Moses. But what it's actually saying is by the mouth, al-pi, right? Al-pi, Yahweh, on the peh of Yahweh, the pi Yahweh, the mouth of he who he be, right? By the what? By the yad. So it's on the mouth of Yahweh, right? By the hand of Moshe, right? The mouth of Yahweh by the hand of Moshe. So that's not really literally commandment. It's actually the mouth, right? Al-fi, right? Alpha, al-fi, on the mouth, al-pi, on the mouth of Yahweh by the hand of Moshe, right? And then it shows they're going out in the order that they went out, which is important as well right there. So anyway, that was just a couple of points right here. There's a few more, but I think hopefully we get a little something out of that, even a further clarity. So then that phraseology, according to the commandment, it appears all throughout here, like on the mouth, right? Literally, it's like it was on the mouth. Like you say, on God, on this, was on the mouth of Yahweh by the hand of Moses. On the mouth of Yahweh by the hand of Moshe. So right here for this Torah reading and feeding, here let's pick up with this psalm here. Looking at the time, we have Psalm 48, the evening psalm here again, the 48th psalm, right? The evening psalm right here. We played a little bit earlier. Here we'd like to share, right? We'd like to share a new mincha. So then the mincha is like the gift. It's like a gift, but basically it's the grain offering, right? The mincha, right? So when we say a new mincha, it's like a new offering. Right, so right here, a little new offering. We'll see whether they flag us. We'll dispute right here. But here, Psalm 48. Shema.
Psalm 48.
Lion of Judah.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge, for lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together, they saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion, and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בעיר אלוהינו הר קודשו. יפה נוף משוש כל הארץ, הר ציון ירכתי צפון, קריית מלך רב. אלוהים בארמנותיה נודע למשגב, כי הנה המלכים נועדו, עברו יחדיו. המה ראו כן תמהו, נבהלו נחפזו. רעדה אחזתם שם, חיל כיולדה. ברוח קדים תשבר אוניות תרשיש. כאשר שמענו כן ראינו, בעיר אדוני צבאות, בעיר אלוהינו. אלוהים יכונניה עד עולם סלע. דימינו אלוהים חסדך בקרב היכליך. כשמך אלוהים כן תהילתך על קצווי ארץ, צדק מלאה ימיניך. ישמח הר ציון, תגלנה בנות יהודה למען משפטיך. שובו ציון והקיפוה, ספרו מגדליה. שיטו לבכם לחילה, פסגו ארמנותיה. למען תספרו לדור אחרון, כי זה אלוהים אלוהינו עולם ועד, הוא ינהגנו על מות.
Lion of Judah Society. Lion of Judah Society.
And here, Shema Yisrael, a Midrash on today's daily psalm, according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, and hereafter the order of Malachiah Tzedek, Mizmor Mim Chet, Mizmor Mem Chet, Psalm 48, Psalm XL, VIII, yes I, the deliverance, the deliverance of Zion, Psalm 48. Mizmor Mim Chet, Mizmor Mem Chet, Mizmor Mem Chet, Mizmor Mem Chet. Shir Mizmor Livnei Korach, Gadol Yahweh Hulala Meod, Be'ir Eloheinu Har Kadesho. A song, Shir Mizmor, a psalm, Shir, a song, Mizmor, a psalm, a chant, an intonation, Livnei Korach, of the sons of Korah. Gadoli Yehovah, great is Jehovah, hulala meod, and greatly to be praised. Be'ir Eloheinu har kadesho, in the city of Ainai Elohim Eloheinu, his holy, his isla, his set apart mountain, har kadesho. Here, Hebraically, the first two verses of today's daily psalm, Psalm 48, Mizmor Mem Chet. The ministering angels said, according to Malachi 1:11, from the rising of the sun even to the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the nations. And the sons of Korach, the Bnei Korach, the sons of Korah said, Gadoli Yehovah hulala meod, be'ir Eloheinu har kadesho, great is Jehovah and greatly to be praised, hulal meod, in the city of Ainai Elohim, be'ir Eloheinu, his holy mountain, har kadesho. Does this mean that Eloheinu, Ainai Elohim, is great only in his city? No. The sons of Korah, the Bnei Korach, really meant, quote, great is Yahweh, is Jehovah, because of what he has done in his city and in his sanctuary. End quote. So, too, Scripture says, according to Psalm 99 and 2, Yahweh, Jehovah is great in Zion, and he is high above all the peoples. That is, if he has done such a thing to his city, how much more will he do to the peoples of the earth, of the earthly plane? For it is said, according to Ermias, according to Jeremiah 25:29, Lo, look, I begin to bring evil on the city, upon that my name is called. And should y'all be utterly unpunished? Y'all shall not be unpunished, for I will call for a sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, of the earthly plane, saith Yahweh Sabaoth, saith Jehovah of hosts. And so the Bnei Korach, the sons of Korah, really meant Gadoli Yahweh Hulal Mod Be'er Elohenu Har Kadesho. Great is Jehovah and greatly to be praised, because of the city of Elohenu, Ainai Elohim, and because of Har Kadesho, because of his Isla, his holy mountain. Beautiful, beautiful, declared beautiful, the joy of the whole earth, Mount Zion. Yefei nofa misosa kola haaretz haaretz iona yarikete afona kiryata meleka raba. Beautiful, itiful, declared beautiful, the joy of the whole earth, Mount Zion. Yefei nofa misosa kola haaretz haaretz iona. Here Hebraically, Psalm 48, here at verse 3, the Gimel verse. Why is it said beautiful? Yefei, declared beautiful, nof, Yefei, nof, beautiful, declared beautiful. Why is it said? By this phrase, the Bnei Korach, the sons of Korah, meant beautiful because all men, all humanity declared her beautiful, beautiful, because there is none, no one like it, no one like her. Though Scripture declares of Tyros, of Tyre, in Ezekiel 27, verse 3, Thou, O Tyre, hast said, I am of perfect beauty. According to Ezekiel 27 and 3, Tyre declared, Thou, O Tyre, hast said, I am of perfect beauty. The words indicate only that the city of Tyros, of Tyre, said this of herself, not that others said this of her. The common saying is, one is not what one's mother says, but what one's neighbor says. The common saying is, one is not what one's mother says, but what one's neighbors say. Not so of Zion, All men, all humanity admit her beauty, Even when she lay in ruins, it was said, according to Lamentation 2 and 15, Is not this the city that men call the perfection of beauty? Nay, more. They call it the joy. Misos kol haaretz, the joy, misos, of the whole earth, called haaretz. Hence, here, the Bnei Korach, the sons of Korah, said, beautiful, declared beautiful, the joy of the whole earth, Mount Zion. Yefei nofa misosa kol haaretz haaretzion. Why was Mount Zion a joy, misos? Because she made the whole earth, the whole earthly plane, joyful, full of joy. Thus, if a man committed a sin, an ak, and was troubled in his heart, so that his heart was bowed down in him, as Solomon said in Proverbs 12:25. Here in the heart of a man bowed it down, but a good thing maketh it glad. He would go up, Aliyah up to Jerusalem, and there make an offering, so that Chata'o, his uckery, his sin, would be forgiven him, and his heart would rejoice, and he would go forward glad of heart from the city. Hence, here it is said, Misosa kol haaretz har Zion, the joy of the whole earth, Mount Zion. You can see for yourself that this was true of his offering. For Mount Zion, Har Zion, is described as being on the sides of the north, is described as being Yarikete Tzafon, on the sides of the north. But was Mount Zion, in the north of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem? Was it not in the south? On the sides of the north, Yarikete Tzafon. However, it means that a man would stand and offer up his sin offering, Chata'at, his uckery offering, on the Tzafon, on the north side of HaMizbeach, of the altar. And it would be killed on the north side of HaMizbeach, on the north side of the altar. As is said in Leviticus, in the Sefer Vayikra 1:11, he shall kill it on the side of the altar northward. What does great connote in the phrase Kiryat Melech Rab, the city of the great king? The king, Ha-Melech, the Negus, even Negus and Neges, is great because he has ordained such things for his own city. He has ordained such things for this world. But in the Olam Haba, the world to come, Elohim himself will be known in her palaces as a protection, as an protection. Elohim be'armenoteha noda'a le'misagab. What is meant by the phrase in her palaces? Be'armenoteha. What is meant by the phrase in her palaces? Be'armenoteha. In her chambers. For as the guards in a city do, going about at night from door to door, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, will do in the Olam Haba, in the age to come, protecting each and every chamber. Hence, here it is said, Elohim be'armenoteha noda'a le'misagab. Elohim himself will be known in her palaces. Now, the verses. For lo, the kings assembled themselves. They passed by together. They saw it, so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Here, Hebraically in today's daily Psalm, Psalm 48, verses 5 to 6. Ki hine ha-melakim no'edu abru yachdau hema rao ke natamahu nivahelu nechbazu. This refers to the hour when Jerusalem, was destroyed, was downstroyed. They pass by. They pass by together. Avru yachdau. This means that Hamelakim, the kings. This means that the kings pass by together to destroy, to downtroy Jerusalem, Jerusalem. For it is said in Yirmiyahu, in Armias, in Jeremiah 22:8, quote, and many nations shall pass by this city, and they marveled, and they marveled. Ken tamahu, ken tamahu, and they marveled. This means that they marveled at her destruction, at her deconstruction. As it is written in Jeremiah 22, Jeremiah 22 and 8, quote, they shall say, every man to his neighbor, wherefore hath Yahweh, hath Jehovah done thus, like this, to this great city? Hence, it is said here, Hebraically in today's daily psalm, Psalm 48, verse 6. Hema rao ken tamahu nibahalo nechpazu. They saw it rao, and so ken, they marveled, ken tamahu. They were troubled, nivahalo, and hasted away. Nechpaz, 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 nechpaz.
Lion of Judah Society.
Sobu Ziona Wehakifuha Sifrua Migadaleha Shitua Libekema Lechela Pasku Armenoteha Limaana Tesapru Lidora Acheron. Walk, trot about Zion, and go round about her. Number the towers thereof. Mark your well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that y'all may tell it to the generation following. Hear. Midrash in today's daily psalm, Mizmor Mim Chet Mem Chet. Here, Psalm 48, verses 13 to 14, Hebraically. Rav Nachman said, according to Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, the thing that have been, it is that which shall be. Even as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, lifted up the Bnei Yisrael, the children, the sons of Yisrael, in clouds of glory, and wrapped them around and bore them up, as it is said in Exodus 19 and 4, and I bore you on eagle's wings. So will He do it again. And it will be said according to Isaiah 60 and 8, who are these that fly as a cloud? Number the towers. Number the towers thereof. Sifru migadaleha. Number her towers. Number the towers. Number her towers thereof. How many gardens will there be in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, Jerusalem? 1184. How many towers will there be in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, Jerusalem? 1485. How many mansions will there be in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, Jerusalem? 1496. How many fountains? 1676. And whence, where will the waters of the fountains come up? From 900 aqueducts. Again, Rav Nachman said, according to Ecclesiastes 1:9, the thing that hath been, it is that which shall be. Even as the Bnei Yisrael, the sons and children of Israel, the Israelites, B'midbar, in the wilderness, sang a song, and the well sprang up for them, as is said in Numbers, in B'midbar, in Numbers 21:17. Then sang Yisrael this song, spring up, O well, sing y'all to it. So they will sing a song in the Olam Haba, in the time, the Iowa to come, and the waters will spring up for them, as is said in Psalm 87:7. As well as the singers, as the players on instruments shall be there. All my springs are in thee. How many pools will there be in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, Naira Salam? 1,369. And how many gates? How many gates will there be? 144. 12 for each tribe. Hence here it is said, walk about Zion, Sobu Zion, walk about Zion and go round about her, and go round about her. Wehakifuha. Number, Sifru, the towers thereof. Sifru, Migdaleha, number her towers. Sifru, Migdaleha. Sobut Zion, Wehakifuha, Sifru, Migdaleha. Mark y'all well her chelot. Mark y'all her chelot, her troops that will have come to her out of exile. Mark ye well. Shitu libekem lechilaha. Shitu libekem lechilah. Mark your well her chelah. Mark y'all her chelot that will have come to her. Mark y'all her troops that will have come to her out of exile. Or mark y'all her dance, her chol, that she will dance. Or mark y'all her song, her chil, as in the verse in Judges 21:21. See and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to sing, to chul, the songs. Pasgu armenoteha, pasgu her palaces. Pasgu armenoteha, pasgu her palaces. Quote, build high the palaces of her inhabitants. Here, pasgu comes from the same Hebraic stem as pisgah. in the verse in Devarim in Deuteronomy 3 and 27, get thee up into the top of Pisgah. Get thee up into the top of Pisgah. A Hebraic word rendered, quote, height in the Aramaic Targum, in the Aramaic interpretation. Shitu libekem lechelah pasgu armenoteha lema'ana tesapru ledora achron kizeh Elohim Elohenu Olama Wa'eda Hua Yenahigenu Almut. What is meant by the words, for this God is our God? What is meant by the words, for this Elohim is our Elohim? Kizeh Elohim Elohenu. Here. Today's daily Psalm, Psalm 48, Hebraically, verse 15. Chaverim. Rav Berakayo, and Rav Chalpo, and Rav Eleazar said in the name of Rav Jose Bar Hanina, in the Olam Haba HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, will prepare a dance. The Holy One, the Isla One, blessed be He, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will prepare a dance for the righteous. And HaKadosh, the Holy One Himself, Baruch Hu, blessed be He, will dance with them. And the righteous, the tzaddikim, the tzaddikan, shall point Him out with their fingers. For it shall be said in that day, Lo, look, this is Eloheinu, this is I and I Elohim, according to Isaiah, Isaiah 25 and 9. It shall be said in that day, Lo, look, this is Eloheinu, this is I and I Elohim, I and I true good, I and I true God. Hence, here, it is said, Kizeh Elohim Eloheinu. This Elohim is I and I Elohim. Kizeh Elohim Eloheinu. He will guide us through worlds. According to Psalm 48, today's daily Psalm, Hebraically, here, verse 15. Hu Yenahigenu Almut. He will guide I and I through worlds. Hu Yenahigenu Almut. That is to say, through two worlds. And all the peoples will hear. Shema'u. They will hear of the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Holy One, the Isla One, blessed be He, works for Yisrael, for Israel, as is said in Psalm 49 and 2. Hear this, all ye peoples, all your peoples. Give ear, all y'all inhabitants of the earth, all y'all inhabitants of the earthly plane. Shim'u zota kol ha'amim ha'azinu kol yoshveya chaled.
Psalm 48. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. God is not... Psalm 48. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. Psalm 48. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. God is known in her palaces for a refuge. For lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together. They saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion, and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
Lion of Judah Society.
Yes, 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 yes. Psalm 48, evening psalm for the second day. Yes, yes, yes. Today's daily psalm right here. Psalm 48. Now, it's that last verse right there. Didn't go into too much in the Midrash, right? But that last verse that says, let's pray to I, excuse me. Yeah, the last verse here in Psalm 48. Now, Hebraically, right? Hebraically, I think that's verse 15. Let me look at this right here. Yeah, Hebraically it's verse 15, but in the KJV. So here, the numbering difference from the Masoretic, from the Hebrew. Like in the Hebrew, it's verse 15, right? And in the KJV, you'll find it at verse 14. It's the verse that reads right here, for this God, our God, forever and ever, he will be our guide. And in the KJV, it says, even unto death, or to death. Now, right there, have to kind of like bun that right there, right? Yeah, again. Imru, amen. And they all say amen right there. Now, why we bun that is because as we study, the Shua self-approve in the Royal Amharic, and we could bring that up, but the Royal Amharic, but it's not quite broken down like this, but it does go into it. It says he be our guide like eternally, right? Here we have the NET, right? It says for God, our God is our defender forever. He guides us. So you see the death rate is dropped off, right? Here it says, for this God is our God forever and ever. He will guide us forever. So here we have forever, right? Now, here there's an interesting kind of a kare, katib. Kare is like what is said, what is read, like what is said, kare. And a katib from katab is like what is written. And sometimes the Hebrew or like any language, there can be a carelessness of the copyist, or sometimes certain words and letters that in a kind of a more casual sense might, replace one another. Or even with the Hebrew, we have like certain letters like the Yod and the Waw, the Y and the W. The Y looks like a short, in the Asherit, the Y looks like a short W. So, and some letters can sometimes be dropped out. So that's why there's the basic reason why there's the kare, what is said, what is kara, as we touched on, and what is, katab, what is written. Right, so sometimes one thing will be written but something else would be said because there's a little nuance to it, and this is one of those kind of cases here, looking at the KJV. So the KJV, right, the KJV right here reads it, and the MT, the Masoretic, if we look at it here in the Masoretic, Ki zeh Elohim Eloheinu olam wa'ed hu yinah hagenu Almut. Now, it's whether we say this right here as Almut. Let me highlight right there in the corner right there. Almut. Literally, it means like on death, right? Almut, like on death, literally above. But it can also mean above death in a sense. All is like on, above, right? But if we read it together, Alamut, right? Or Olamat, right? Alamot, we can read. So the same letters, a few different words can be read from it. So you see there's the that's not the dagesh, that's the mepeg, some of the little diacritical Hebrew marks. You see the little hyphen. If you can see the little hyphen between the two words, al, and there's like a hyphen, up a hyphen, and it says mut, right? So right here, the Hebrew al mut literally means upon death. And hence, because of this, the AV, what's known as the authorized version, and the RV, the revised version, right? They even read in translation, even unto death, right? That, however, requires in Hebrew, if this was a proper Hebrew translation, like even unto death, that would not be a proper Hebrew translation. Almut, right? In order for that to be a proper translation, even like to death, like towards death, to death, it would have to be ill and not al. So it has to be ilmut. Like it says, why daber Moshe, why daber Yahweh il Moshe, right? It has to be ilmut, not almut, right? So even a translation in the KJV, let's go over here so you can see, here's the KJV right here, right? KJV. So here they have almut, right? There's mut, and there's also a psalm that's a mut labain, right? Like death for the son, right? There's some say the meaning is dubious, but here we have mut, right? Mut, death, to die, like to die for the son, right? Or death for the son, and the mut labain, like death, like the lamed for the son. But mut as a verb is to kill or to die, or to, it could be to unalive, but it's more like the Hebrew more force of it is to dead on, right? To dead on, right? To cause death upon one. So anyway, here it is read in the Hebrew as almut. So let's show this up here. So ISV goes with the whole death thing, right? And in some of the other reads, they read it as not almut, but olamim, right? Olamim. So here's what we have up here, right? In the LXX, the Septuagint, instead of reading to death, the LXX reads, right, in the synagogue Greek, the corresponding would be olamim. Olamim has a literal sense of worlds, but it's sometimes brought out as forever or eternity, or like the world without end. Olamim. So basically the LXX reads forever, has a sense of forever, right? Or to the world without end, right? Now the MT right there, because of that, I think it's the meteg or mepeg. I got to figure which one it is. It's a little hyphen between the two, almut, right? Because of that, it spaces it out. But if we were to see it all together, we can see the Hebrew of the other manuscripts as olamot. Olamot has a sense of worlds, but the sense of worlds also has an implied sense of forever, right? So if we look at the way the KJV, just basic Hebrew, right? Just basic Hebrew. This is why up here, easy English, even when not so easy, our guide until we die. So after we die, he's no longer our what? But here the BSB says even till death, right? And they have a note here. Let's look at their note. He will guide us beyond death. But then they just translate as to death and beyond. That's why I said before, all is like upon or above. Al mut can be interpreted as above death, like over death, right? Like we're above, like death is turbulence below, but we are above. You know what I'm saying? It should have been, if we take it that the point of the Masoretic is correct, then it should be that way. But anyway, just want to bring this part out here because it is a key kind of note that adds to some of the ancient and even modern present study that we can have on this right here. We see it as the two words instead of al mut. If it's literally like that, it's above death, like beyond and above death. So death is like below and we are above. Or putting it together as one word as elsewhere, right? Olamot, 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 like olamot, right? Olamot means worlds, and it implies a sense of eternity. So that's how the LXX, the Septuagint, the synagogue Greek version. So Septuagint, from a Hebraic perspective, would have been like the Apocrypha. It would have been like the common language that we were writing in. You know what I mean? And like much of the Apocrypha is in Greek, and therefore also the LXX was the later kind of Greek version, the synagogue Greek version, the Koine Greek version, right? Said to be translated by Yehudi Judahites, and therefore in many things it kind of brings out in a Gentile sense the Hebrew mind. So that means if the LXX, right, has it as one word, instead of al mut, they have it as olamot, the letters that would pronounce olamot, right, worlds or eternity. So modern expositors, and translators, and they hold that it is not part of the text. So there's another interesting reasoning that holds that part that's highlighted right there on the screen, that's really not part of the text. Right? Well, what do they say? It's part of. They say that the verse reading, for such is God, Elohim Eloheinu, our Elohim, right? Olam Wa'ed, forever and ever, well, forever and onward, really the sense of forever and onward, right? He will guide us. Who? Yenahagenu. Who? He himself and none other, Yenahagenu. Yenahage Anu. He will guide us. Yenahagenu. He will guide I and I. He will guide us. Al Mut would then be a musical direction. So some look at the Al Mut to be a musical direction, as we have it in the Psalms. Many places we find at the beginning of Psalms, to a chief musician, a psalm upon this, upon that, upon string music, upon wind instrument, those kind of directions. Comparable with the Al Mut Labain. So we have Al Mut Labain in the 9th Psalm. So if you go compare that with the superscription in the Good King James Version, you'll see it has Al Mut Labain, and that's brought out as on the death of the son, on the death for the son, right? The heading of Psalm 9. Or it can be read as Alamot, right? The superscription of Psalm 46, right? So we look at Psalm 46, right? In Psalm 46, just a little bit here on this, right? Psalm 46, alamot literally would be a word that would say maidens. Virgins in a sense, though Betula is more directly the virgin in that sense of virgin, but alamot, the alamot is actually like maidens, like young marriable, women, like in the sense young maidens, right? So in Psalm 46, there's the alamot, right? And some think that it means maidens because it could be maidens. And there's a suggestion from Psalm 46, the alamot. In fact, let's go over here. We'll return to this. Let's see. Is it going to go like that? Okay, let's go over here to 46 so you can see it for yourself right here. Okay, here we go. So you see the word right there, alamot. right? There's alamot. We just highlighted the whole section there. Alamot, right? Alamot. Alamot is young woman. You see the alamot, young woman, right? Young woman. So some, suggested that this song was sung by a female choir, right? So some will see this, oh, see, it's alamot. And alamot is a young woman, right? The sopranos, the maidens, right? But that has to be rejected, right? Why? Because no such thing existed in the Haykal or in the tabernacle. There was not a choir of young women. I mean, a woman could sing, a woman could give praise, but that doesn't mean that there was no choir of women in that sense, much less a temple tabernacle direction. Nor is the alternative. Others say, well, if it's not alamot and it was like the Levite males, 25 to 50, maybe it was the soprano voices. Some think that it meant the soprano voices of boys, right? That was, some have thought that that's the alternative. But we have to dismiss that too. That must be dismissed as well, based on the study of scripts, right? Because in First Chronicles, right, First Chronicles 15 and 20, it says something interesting. So here, let's go to First Chronicles. I'm showing you this from Psalm 46, because those last words, is the last words to death? Is it above death, upon death, like over death, right? Is it forever, right? He'll be our guide forever. Which one is it really? So here we can solve that by scripture explaining scripture, at least the evidence, the time and the mind, right? So here in 15 and 20, look at this here. 15 and 20, right? So let's go to 15 and 20. Let's get the basic verse right here, right? It says, in Zechariah and Aziel and Shemeramot, what a name, Shemeramot, and Shemeramot and Yehiel and Uni and Eliab and Maasaiah, right? And Benaiah, right? With psalteries. You see what it says? Now, this is beautiful that the KJV kept this here, because this helps us out a lot to understand, right, for ourselves. It says, and psalteries on alamot, right? Because then if we read it as virgins and say, well, maybe that's what it is at the end of Psalm 48, right? And he will guide us, right, virgins, to like guide us to virgins or something. It doesn't make no sense. And it makes no sense in Psalm 46 to think that that was like female choir, or like it was like maybe in the Catholic Church and the other churches where they get the little boys to sing soprano, right? But the clue is found right here, right? Why is the clue found right here? Well, it says, in psalteries set to, or psalteries on, the sense of on, is set to alamot. So let's break this down right here, just briefly. It says, U Zechariah and Zechariah, U Zechariah, where Ya Aziel and Aziel, right? Ua Shemir Ramot and Shemir Ramot, where we Chiel, where Yechiel and Yechiel, where Uni and Uni, right? Where Eliab and Eliab, U Maasayahu, U Masayahu, right? U and, right, Messiah, right? And U Benayahu, right? And then it says right here, be Nibalim, on the Nivalim, be Nivalim, be Nibalim, on the Nibalim, all alamot. So these are these words right here, right? The last part, the psalteries, right? See if we can highlight. There we go. The psalteries, right? It says there, it says be, right? By way of Nibalim, all alamot. So the Nibaim, right? Now you see how the ISV has it? Benaiah played harps to accompany women singers. Well, that's interesting there. Wasn't expecting that one right there, right? But what's important about this right here, right, as we compare this here, right, we reject the ISV on that right there, right? It's not because we love the female, the choir singers, you know what I'm saying? But here some things is probably a musical liturgical term, right? And this is based on Psalm 46 and 1. We just went there. Psalm 46 and 1. La menatziach livnei korah, to chief musician of the sons of Korah, all alamot shir, on the alamot, right? Shir, on the daughters, right? Shir, no, right? The more correct understanding of this right here, beside the woman singers, let's go down here, right? Right? The more correct understanding of this is stringed instruments. Why do we say stringed instruments? Well, let's go back. You see the alamot style, right? We can prove this right here because, right, the alamot, which is, they say young woman, yes, it can mean maidens in another sense, but this is a term, right? This is a term right here that is indicating how the instruments are to be set. You know, like the musical setting of the instrument, the nebel. The nebel is like the harp, the lute, the guitar, the string you know, like the string instrument, like a musical instrument with strings, right? You know, right there. You know, the part about the bag and collapsing, it's like, you know, the body of a guitar. You see how the body of the guitar is, or body of a banjo or something like that. Yeah, so they use sometimes the bag, you know, or the gourd or something like that, and then add the strings on there. So its setting is how the instruments are to be set, which makes perfect sense, right? Since there's nothing in the Torah that said that there was like a choir of women, you know, that regularly gave praises, you know what I mean, in the court. There was only the Levites, they gave praises. But when the people came, people could, of course, give praises, you know, at the giving of praise, to give thanks at the giving of thanks. You know what I'm saying? So this must be balanced over here. You see, we have this over here, right? Then it says, and harps set on, let me see if I could bring out the verse, right? Let's see if the verse right here. Now notice the second verse. And Matiah and Eliphele, right? And Micaiah and Obed Edom and Yael and Azaziah. Look what it says, with harps, right? On the Sheminite, right? On the Sheminite, right? On the eighth to oversee, right? They said the eighth to oversee, but on the Sheminite. Now, the balance to understand that it's musical instrument is the alamot here, right? Which is the high sound, like the soprano, and the high, like the feminine, you say, voice tones, right? And then over here is the bass tone. So we have the highs and the lows, right? You know, the drum and the bass, the highs and the lows. So the sheminite is the eighth, right? Right? Some think it might be an 8-string musical instrument. It might be, but moreover, as a musical direction, right? It's a musical notation that says the octave. So some instruments were set to a lower tone, and some instruments were set to higher tone. So we talk about drum and bass, the highs and the lows, right? Whether then or now, that's always important musically. So this here is the most likely, right? Because of what we have in the text and what we can compare here, that indicates that the former, right, the alamot, were instruments with a tone of a high pitch, and the instruments, the harps right here, the kinnor, these harps with the twang, right? You know, so as long as the drum and the bass, you know, like the regular guitar and the bass guitar. This is what it brings out in the setting of one to a high tone, right? And the next one to a low, like a bass, an octave, you know, the octave deeper, right? So speaking about this right here is just to kind of sum up on this last verse. You know, we've spoken about before, but I think it's something of interest. One can contemplate, you know, which how can I say, which basis of the Hebrew study would one, you know, more prefer, right? You know what I mean? But definitely it's not like until we die, the context is off, right? Because even till we die, as we mentioned in the Hebrew, it will have to be ilmut, not almut, not almut. Almut is, you know, it's not two, it's like above death, or like over on death, right? Implying like almost like death is under your foot. You know what I'm saying? You know, in the messianic sense. So on that level, yes, but it's a nuance of translation in order for the reader, the receiver, to get the true sense, right? We, based on the Ethiopic, right, and the Septuagint, right, and some of the other Hebrew versions, we more seek the sense of he will be our guide forever in this olam, in this world, and the olam haba. Right? So right here, just to bring that out right there, right? The superscription to Psalm 46 as a comparison. Such a direction appears at the end. Now notice that if this is a direction, some say it's a musical direction, al-mut. If this is a musical direction, right, that often appears at the beginning, right? Here it appears at the end instead of at the beginning. Now what's interesting, in this season we had Habakkuk chapter 3, the previous Haftarah prophet's reading, right, for what was that, Naso? It was Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 1 to verse 19, right? And there we have a similar sense, right, where a musical direction appears at the end of a musical composition and not at the beginning, right? However, as this occurs nowhere else in the Psalms. So normally in the Psalms, you have the musical directions at the beginning of the Psalms, right? As it occurs nowhere in the Psalms, many consider, and I'm one of those who also consider this to be accurate, they consider that this al-mut, if it really is on or above death, like or on death, above death, right, that it must belong to the beginning of Psalm 49. And here's what's interesting, that Psalm 49, right, its theme, Psalm 49 theme is death, the leveler, right? Whether one is high or low, rich or poor, whatever the status, standing, right? This is something that affects all, right? Death is the leveler. Death like brings everything like down to kind of zero, like, or even, proverbially speaking, it flatlines it, right? No highs, no low, everything is level. So Psalm 49 has a theme of death, right? Or theme death, the leveler, right? Death, the leveler. Like whether man is rich or poor, or he boasts himself, it's like everything comes down to one kind of, finality in that sense. So in that sense, it would belong more to, if that's one of the senses of it, al-mut, it would belong more to, like on the theme of death. Then we pick up with Psalm 49, on the theme of death. And also Psalm 49, it has been appointed for recital in the house of mourning. So those who are going through mourning, some sort of mourning, in the Yehudi, the tribe of Judah, and even the Judaic house of mourning, Psalm 49 is one that's appointed for recital. So that even further firms it up, right? So the last verse here, who Ye nahigenu al-mut, he will guide us forever, right? Al-mut or olamot, right? Hu ye nahigenu olamot, right? Right there. Or in the literal sense of al-mut, like above or beyond death. Like death is the turbulence, and we are al-mut, right? We are above, all above that. Yes, so right here, and in the Brit Chadasha sense, we can see how that, reading and understanding of that last verse right there. But here, brothers and sisters and brothers, gonna seal up right here with today's, the day already, the psalm here in the season, reason for the season. We have this a new mix here, new Minka offering here on the garnet silk, Christ in his kingly character, Shema'ah Yisrael. Hear this right here.
Lion of Judah Society.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בעיר אלוהינו הר קודשו. יפה נוף משוש כל הארץ, הר ציון ירכתי צפון, קריית מלך רב. אלוהים בארמנותיה נודע למשגב, כי הנה המלכים נועדו, עברו יחדיו. המה ראו כן תמהו, נבהלו נחפזו. רעדה אחזתם שם, חיל כיולדה. ברוח קדים תשבר אוניות תרשיש. כאשר שמענו כן ראינו, בעיר אדוני צבאות, בעיר אלוהינו. אלוהים יכונניה עד עולם סלע. דימינו אלוהים חסדך בקרב היכליך. כשמך אלוהים, כן תהילתך על קצווי ארץ, צדק מלאה ימיניך. ישמח הר ציון, תגלנה בנות יהודה למען משפטיך. שובו ציון והקיפוה, ספרו מגדליה. שיטו לבכם לחילה, פסגו ארמנותיה. למען תספרו לדור אחרון, כי זה אלוהים אלוהינו עולם ועד, הוא ינהגנו על מות.
Psalm 48.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. God is known in her palaces for a refuge, for lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together, they saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgment. Walk about Zion and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
Yeshua Shalom, Yeshua Shalom, Boker Tov, Yesu Salam, brothers and sisters, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. That's right, give thanks, give thanks.
The emperor was then vested with the 7 ornaments of the coronation, including his gold sword studded with precious stones, a diamond-encrusted ring, 2 traditional lances, the imperial scepter, and a golden globe of the earth, the imperial vestments, and at last came the magnificent crown. 7 differently scented ointments of ancient prescription were received on the imperial head, brow, and shoulders, one with each of these ornaments. The final ceremony was a grand tour of the cathedral by the emperor and empress, who was also crowned, but with less elaborate rites. They were escorted by the priests and bishops, princes and high dignitaries, Ethiopian bishops and priests from all over Ethiopia, and a large number of Coptic deacons, carrying palm branches and chanting in mighty volume.
Lion of Judah Society.